2024. And I'll call this special meeting of the Board of Education to order. I see we have a quorum. Tonight, we'll be working on a budget work session. We're calling this Chapter 2, Elementary and Special Education Instruction. So who would like to lead us off?
I think I'll do the introductions and kind of be as brief as I can be. I just wanted to because we do have some people coming on, I just wanted to tell a little bit about our FY25 budget journey. We started last week with an overview and the main drivers of the budget with school administration and central office administration. I'll work with the board through this process to review the budget chapter by chapter. It's a different way, a different approach of looking at it. But so hopefully everybody will understand the priorities of the district, and they'll see it both at a school level and a district level, which we're taking time to do. And I think it's a real thoughtful process, a way to really look at it and do a deeper dive. During the process, we'll look for all kinds of cost savings and efficiencies as we go along. We'll look at next year's budget, but as we look at it, just know that we're seeing increases in salaries and benefits, bus transportation, costs of oil and electricity and supplies. Almost everything has gone up, just like at home. But we'll work together with due diligence to be good stewards of the town's finances, and we'll do it together. So I just want to say that this week I'm happy to introduce my elementary principals, Chris Dolphinaise from CK, if you can just wave at us. We have Seth Danner from Charles Barnum, Steve Wheeler from Mystic River Magnet, Ryan Cheney, principal of NEA. And we also have Jamie Giordano from Thames River Magnet, and Denise Doolittle, who is our pupil personnel director and oversees special education. And they're going to team on this a little bit. They're going to talk about their schools and their programs. And then Denise, we have an overview page of special ed that she can review for a district approach and give you even a deeper dive into special education. Just a little bit of a brief history. I came on board in 2014 at the beginning of what we were calling the Groton 2020 vision. And this was a community that really invested in 3 new schools and really a chance and an opportunity to have balance across our schools. When we created the 1 middle school, we now had a balance socioeconomically, and it mirrored the community just like our Fitch High School did. And when we created the 5 elementaries and brought teams of kids together who had been together, and then created not only a wider neighborhood schooling, but also a possibility for intra-district magnets, because we had a lot of families choosing to go to New London, to Ledyard, to learn, and that had a price tag of about $2.5–3 million for Groton. And we really wanted our kids back. We believe in this. Southeastern Connecticut has lots of opportunities, and that's a wonderful thing for families. But we really wanted to really make our schools just as inviting, and really with the magnet themes and the engagement that we're seeing for families and kids, it's really been a wonderful opportunity. And we've seen the balance of 54% free and reduced lunch and 54% students of color balance across the schools, and really perfectly in the middle school and high school. But even in the elementaries, where we were cited by the state as being racially out of balance, really we've come so close. Some are right on that number, and some are within 5 to 15% off. And as we continue to do intra-district magnets, we get closer and closer to that goal. And that was something that was really important to this community. So the elementary principals and pupil personnel director will be telling their story today about the schools, the students, the priorities for next year. They'll share about their magnet themes, the programs and partnerships, and some of their priorities in this budget. And while this is a level budget, due to escalating costs, we see increases in almost every area. So I'm going to turn it over to them, and I think we're going to go school by school, kind of in alpha order, like we've done things. So Mark, are you going to show the view of the school, or do we have Phil? Can you show it or share it while I kind of guide the process?
I have the PowerPoint if you want me to show it.
Okay, well, the PowerPoint I just need to have you open up the first school, which would be Catherine Kolnowski. So Chris And Chris Dolphinese is going to talk for a minute, so you have a little time to find it.
I may not have that. I have the budget stuff.
Well, it is in there. Phil,
Okay,
can you find that for him?
I'll look as well.
Okay, thanks. So we'll let Chris kind of get started telling your story, and then we can put up the slide. That way we can see you.
Okay. Well, Catherine Kolnaski, Steam Magnet, opened up as Groton's first intra-district magnet school in 2008, but with a different magnet theme than what we currently have. In 2013, we rebranded ourselves as a STEAM magnet school, which is STEM plus the arts. And we did that because the magnet theme we had was not really attracting students in great enough numbers to help our population better reflect the Groton population overall. Since we've become a STEAM magnet school, our population does more closely reflect the general population of Groton, and we feel that we've been very successful. So our program really is the integration of science, technology, engineering, and math with the arts. And so our students get lots of experiences, K-5. We have computer science, robotics, including the programming of robots, and engineering, guaranteed engineering experiences at all of those grade levels. Our older students also participate in the Invention Convention and the Science Fair. We have expanded arts opportunities that include STEAM art, our Media Maker Lab, our piano lab, early strings, and our 3D design studio with our 3D printers that our students get to experience. We also have after-school opportunities for our students that include our drone team, our robotics team, our CK Explorers, and our STEM club. And we have great community partnerships. We work primarily with the Connecticut Science Center. We also have a partnership with Project Oceanology and New England Science and Sailing. So all of that helps us achieve our goals as a STEAM magnet. And I'd have to say, oh, just in time, my budget is popping up. I have to say, if you're looking at our budget, I think the most important piece of our budget is that certified and non-certified salaries. It really is the teachers, the paraprofessionals, the tutors that really make our program work. It's the time, the efforts, and the passion that they put into what we do at Catherine Kolnaski that really makes everything work in our school. And a real priority for us is those tutors and paraprofessionals. They, particularly our tutors, are like the heart of us being able to meet our students' social and emotional needs, helping our ELL students as they're mastering a second language, our academic supports for our students who need a little extra support, and our behavioral supports. So those tutors and all of our staff are a real priority in our budget. And if you look through the rest of the budget list, which I'm pointing to, like you can see me doing that, some of our other priorities in there really are maintaining the programs that we currently have. And that includes our partnerships with NESS and Project O and the Connecticut Science Center, and the transportation costs to get our children to experiences in those locations as much as possible. We try to do in-district field trips to save on some of that cost, and our partnerships have been great at providing those opportunities for us in locations within Groton. You'll also see I have textbooks and library books. I think books is another priority that we have and has always been a priority at CK. And it's about building those libraries and maintaining them. Those textbooks are not just building, but replacing books that get lost or damaged. And same thing in the library, keeping our library up to date and replacing lost or damaged books. Our general supplies and course specific supplies really provide not just all of the basic things that we need to keep our classrooms going, glue, scissors, paper, copy paper, but also those extra materials for our engineering projects and our science projects. And then I do have some replacement costs for instructional equipment and additional instructional equipment. Every year I try to replace furniture that's been broken or damaged, just to keep our building new and working for our students. And so this year I have money in there to replace some kindergarten furniture that was damaged when it was used for a program, and additional instructional equipment, some small group tables and desks and teacher chairs that we need, so that every adult has an adult space to work.
Thank
I
you,
think that
Chris.
sums it up.
That's really good. Yeah, yeah. So the next one we have on deck is Seth Danner from Charles Barnum. So Seth, we'll let you say a few words about your school and your magnet theme, and then we can also put up your sheet, your one sheet.
Oh, you can put it up.
Before
I'm
we-
not
before
talking
we-
anywhere near as long as she is.
I've got the timer going.
Before
Yeah.
we go there, Bev had her hand raised, and then
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
if
Yep.
we can go to Bev and then Ian, please.
All right.
Thank you, Jay. I was going to ask you when can we ask questions? Chris, can you tell me about the 0.2 French? Can you hear me? Oh yeah, okay. Can you tell me about the 0.2 French that you have listed? I think I'm on your page, yeah.
So we do, Susan, I'm just assuming that that's our foreign language.
That's the foreign language, but I would say that the majority of that cost is in a grant. So we have to double check on that to see if it was spread out by accident with their budgets, or if that's to make sure that that's in a grant. But as you know, the DODEA World Language Grant hosts a elementary carousel model where every child in 4th and 5th, and next year 3rd, 4th, and 5th will be able to have the opportunity to do like they used to do in 6th grade in world language, where they can experience both the French world language and the Spanish world language before they get to middle school, where they can make a choice.
And why did you choose French for Catherine Kanaski?
I don't know. I mean, they have both of them. All 5 schools has both. I don't know why that 0.2, if Dave is on there and knows the answer to that. But I know that the cost of that is in a grant.
Okay, so you have Spanish at that school too?
Yes, we have both. Every school has
right.
Spanish and French for a
Okay,
Our-
well,
summer.
you might,
Our students are actually just completing their first half of the year in Spanish, and we'll be switching over to French at the end of January.
okay. And Chris, why is your field trip budget so much lower than the other elementary schools?
The cost of the field trips is kind of a little bit of an unknown for us now that we have the new bus contract. But we have worked to get a lot of our field trips in Groton. So even though a NEST field trip might normally take place outside of Groton, we've asked them to rework them so that they're in Groton, so that we have a little bit of savings there. That might not quite cover my field trip costs, and I might have to adjust. This is sort of I might have to pull a little bit of money from another place, or it might be perfect. We're going to find out.
We were
Yeah,
just saying today, Beverly, you asked that question. We were just talking about that today, that this is the first year of this new contract, which costs us more money, but has fewer services. So we are missing that the 6 to 6 use of those buses for field trips. So it's almost like with any budget, you go through the process and it kind of, this year's actuals will really help us to understand next year's real, predicted. So that happens in every budget, that the more years we have behind us with something, the closer we'll get to it. But this is the first year for us with this new contract.
Yeah, but I'm just wondering, because her field trip budget is substantially lower than the other elementary schools, and that's what caught my attention. So I was just wondering, are those students going on less field trips than the other students? Which I personally think field trips are very important.
Yeah.
But
And
so
a lot
that's
of
why
our
I
field trips
question it.
are also in-house, Beverly. Sometimes they'll go out, especially if it's an environmental, we want them to be out in the environment, right? But there are some partners that will come into, like, I think the Science Center will come to CK. So that alleviates the need for transportation.
Well, how come the other schools aren't utilizing the same thought?
Well, I think they are, but I just think that they've done their math a little differently in figuring it out. We were actually having that conversation today when we were reviewing this. So,
And I will say, our partnership with the Connecticut Science Center, they do come to our school and do a lot with our students. And we're very fortunate with our location where, we're surrounded by one of the open space trails. We have our own nature trail. So we're able to do a lot of that right on our school grounds without leaving. But our students, I really don't know exactly how many field trips the other schools have, but every grade level in our building has multiple field trips a year.
Beverly, I am bringing the partners to the table, all of them, to talk about how they can help support us with these field trips and transportation, because they also seek grants. So that meeting's going to be happening in the next month. So we will do everything we can to help support this, because every school does take field trips, both going out and coming in. We even have districted field trips, so every grade level has an assured experience. So we also are believers that that's important. Kids kind of remember that more than anything sometimes.
And Susan, how did we make out with the library this year? With the students going or not going to the library? That was a concern I spoke to you about in the beginning of the year.
Well, I think they've all worked it out in their own buildings so that they all have an opportunity to go to the library. It's just at different times.
Okay. And the building sub, the 4.0, are those permanent subs? Are those subs that you have in the building every day?
They are, and they're worth their weight in gold. We also talked about that today, especially with the absenteeism due to COVID and pre and post COVID. And, that we have multiple absences every day between the number of staff, both, even with the non-certified. So, the building subs are certainly very helpful, and they're part of the school community. So they know our kids and they're able to jump in at any given time and do almost anything. But I can let the principal answer that. Chris, I don't know if you wanted to add to that, or Seth.
I'm so thankful for those 4 building subs, knowing that I have them every day. And since COVID, it's been very difficult for us to get day-to-day subs. Before COVID, the district had a large pool of day-to-day subs, and those people just really aren't there for us anymore. We don't have very many people that I probably can count on my 2 hands how many day-to-day subs I've had sign up so far this year. So we're so thankful for our building subs that we have those people who can fill in for us. And actually, one of our building subs is serving as a long-term sub because we just haven't been able to find a long-term sub.
That happens quite often across the schools, whether it's a surgery or a maternity, where our building subs end up stepping up to the plate to take on those long terms, and it gives them great experience too, Beverly.
But thank you. I'll let Ian go, and then I have another question.
Okay, Ian, if you'd like to go.
Sure, thank you. So just to build on what Bev was asking about before, and Susan, you were saying this, you're speaking with all the principals about the approach to field trip costs and how much is spent and how it's spent.
Well, I don't
Um,
get into the weeds with that, Ian, but I do talk to them. For instance, we did negotiate with the bus company to get free field trip, and we've talked about strategies to use those for the big field trips where we're taking multiple grade levels, and going to a pretty decent field trip. So, I don't micromanage. I mean, they run their buildings,
right,
but we talk
understood.
about
So
strategies.
understood. Yeah, I guess from the outsider perspective here, or from it just seems that with the big differences in the amounts that I'm just concerned as to like how things are being calculated or allotted. Um,
I would just
and
say
then,
that's the I would say that my reaction to that is just this is the first year for us, so we're kind of navigating it, and by the end of the year, we're going to see what the actuals really are. So we might have to do some fine tuning.
when you say the first year, what do you mean by the first year?
This is the first year of a contract where we don't have 6 to 6 free field trips all day long. So we have a more expensive contract with less services.
Right. Okay, so we can look forward to some kind of update and report on the outcomes as far as that goes.
Absolutely. I think Dave also has his hand up. I don't know if he wanted to answer your question, Ian.
Dave, did you have something to say about that topic? Okay, so we'll come back to Dave if you want to continue, Ian.
Okay, and so yeah, this is a question for the principal. With the recent storms and everything that we've had, the intense weather, has there been any new infrastructure situations that may need to be addressed?
Not at CK. CK is, handled the storms. The building has done really well with the storms. Do have a little problem down at the bottom of our driveway, but I believe that's actually a town issue, not a school issue.
Understood. Okay. All right. That's all I had, I guess, in the sense of the language. So I also was looking at that 0.2 number, and I know we're teaching both languages at the school, but and maybe this might be a question for Dave. Just as it's listed here, it just looks like it is only French that's taught there. So I wasn't
It's
know
not.
if
It's just that's an
Right.
accounting issue. I've got to go back with Dave and figure out why
Okay.
that was done.
Got it. All right. So yeah, that's all I have for now. Thank you.
Okay, and next, Adrian had his hand up.
Yeah, hi, how are you? This message is for Chris. So I did a little research on EdSite, and it looks like our the general education certified teachers, like 5 years ago, we had 30.5. And it's kind of been going down. And I counted 26.7 on this sheet here. So I'm kind of wondering, has class size increased, or am I reading that incorrectly? Or have we noticed any effects from less certified teachers in the building? What's been changing? And also, I guess, what's the average class size for the younger kiddos and for like the fourth and fifth graders?
So our numbers have decreased significantly since I was first started at CK. We initially were around 535 students. When Groton redistricted, our number went down to about 430 or so. And then when the two new elementary schools opened, our numbers went down to about 375. We run between 375 and 400 now as a school. So it's really the distribution of the students in Groton more so than within our building. Our average class size at K and 1 is about 17 or 18. Our average class size in grade 2 is usually around 22. And that's because we go from 4 kindergarten and first grades into 3 second grades. So the second grade numbers tend to be higher. And then they settle out as we go through 3rd grade, 4th and 5th. And so our average class size is 3 to 5, usually run right around 19 or 20.
Right. All right. And then separately, support staff, you know, I'm you know, concerned with reading and you know, some of the things that we're doing, implementing the new reading program, but also servicing dyslexic children. How many staff do you have there that have training to be able to do like tier 3 intervention with dyslexic students? You know, so like Wilson level 1 or Wilson level 2 training, and you know, do we have how many, like, well, I guess just how many staff do we have in the building doing that?
So
That's
I
something
have,
oh, go on.
go ahead, Susan.
Well, I was going to say Denise is here, and I know that we've actually hired a 0.6 who is Wilson trained and is training, and we have several across the district in every school, both special educators and reading consultants who do this work. So I know that she'll be able to answer that. I don't know if she's got that number off the top of her head, but she knows district-wide and that they are in each building.
Yes,
Yeah,
thank
well,
you.
I saw on the special ed sheet that there's one contractor and then 0.6. I'm assuming that we must have more than 1.6
we do.
like instructors that have like Wilson level 1 or Wilson level 2 and that are actively working with kids, you know, that in tier 3 intervention. So I guess you know, I'm assuming that there must be at least one in each building. So I guess but maybe that's not a correct assumption on my end.
Well, we have many teachers who are trained in Wilson, either, you know, varying levels of training. They're primarily special education teachers that also work with students in other academic areas other than reading. But the dyslexia specialists that are 1.6 focus solely on teaching students with dyslexia using Wilson, and the 0.6 works with students at the elementary level.
So there's 2/3 of one position with all the dyslexia intervention
No,
from a teacher that has dyslexia certification. I mean,
No,
there is,
there are-
you know,
No, we have many special ed teachers who are trained in Wilson. So they teach Wilson in addition to delivering specialized instruction to students on their caseload. This year, we've increased the number of teachers who just focus on Wilson, and that's the addition of the 0.6 at the elementary level, because we have a 1.0 at the middle school level.
all right. And when you say trained in Wilson, is that the 3-day training, or is that the full level 1 or level 2 training?
Our teachers have a variety of different levels of training depending on their interest and how far they want to go in that training.
All right, I'll bring this up again later when we talk about special ed. All right, that answers my question. Thank you, Chris.
Jen also has a question, so I'd like to recognize her next.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Thank you. This is just for Susan. Susan, as the principals are going through their budget, maybe we could get a supplement as to how many of the staff is from the ARP ESSER grant that may or may not, move forward.
so we don't have anyone, I don't think, as a certified teacher in the ARP ESSER in elementary level.
Okay,
That's great.
There was a social worker, but we did get an ARP ESSER additional grant for that social worker. And that she was actually specifically for primary grades, and we'll be able to continue that work for the next couple years because of the additional ARP funding.
Perfect.
So
Thank you.
that's not going to affect this level as much.
This level?
Yeah.
Perfect. Good. Then I won't even worry about it. Thank you.
But we'll get that to you. We've got that.
Thanks.
And Beverly.
This question is for Chris. Chris, I'm very interested in the achievement gap. So tell me how your budget's going to help your school close the achievement gap.
Well, I think there's two parts to that. One is the first part that I talked about as being our number one priority, which is our staff. Making sure that we have not only the certified staff, but the tutors in place to help us help our students behaviorally, socially, and emotionally, because they have to be available for learning. To help our ELL students, we do have the second highest percentage of multilingual learners in the district. And so those ELL tutors are critical in my school and in the other schools like Mystic River in order to continue those students' growth, because that's really that's an important key to improving that achievement gap. And the other part of that, I believe, is the work that we do in our STEAM program. It's building student knowledge base, helping them feel good about being a learner and learning how to problem solve and look at problems a different way. And keeping them interested in school and seeing that there's a purpose to what we're doing. There's great things out there in the world, and we want our students to experience those and be excited about coming to school, about learning, about building their knowledge and moving forward. So I really think those are the two things that we're focused on for closing that achievement gap.
Can I just add this part too? One of the things I've noticed when I go to the family events, and I started going to Chris's when I first got here because she was first out of the gate. Parents show up when their kids are participating and excited about what they're learning and want to showcase their work, whether it's at a musical, whether it's at a invention convention, whatever it is, our parents are there and they're supporting their kids and they get excited. So that family engagement piece is huge for us. It's huge as a Title I district. We're kind of authorized to do that, but beyond being authorized to do something, we know that it's the ticket that the more we do for our families to help them with their children and to get them excited, I know that it's going to transfer better. We can't leave our families out of this.
Do we have good attendance at Catherine Kanaski?
Oh, yeah.
At our most recent reading event that we had in December, we had 477 people attend.
Wow, good.
It was the majority of our families. It was just, we didn't even know where to squeeze the people in. We have outstanding parent participation at our school. It's something that we've been working on for 13 years, I think. And we have great parent participation. Our families love to come to our events.
Well, thank you, Chris. And thanks for everything that you do.
Okay, now I'd like to recognize Dean.
Thanks. The 0.2 for French. There are 5 elementary schools. Each one is allotted 0.2. So that's 1 FTE. I think all that was done there was just spread among the 5 schools without regard to the actual school size or the body size. I think it was just an accounting spread.
So I can see Dave. I don't know if Dave can answer that for us here on the spot, but I know that a grant is really supporting also both the French teacher and the Spanish teacher as well.
Yeah, I'm on.
And let me just I'll add one more thing.
Okay.
I see, and I could be wrong, 3 entries in 3 of the schools. There's bilingual 0.3. That adds up to 0.9. Is that another way of taking one FTE and splitting it among 3 schools as evenly as possible?
And those happen to be the
Yeah.
highest EL population, although that teacher does service and oversees our tutors in all the buildings so that it's really aligned between the schools. But there are some schools that just have maybe 4 or 5 EL students, and there's some that have 30.
Well, if you go by percentages, that's not exactly true. If you look at Northeast and you look at Thames River, they both say 2% ELL, but Thames has bilingual and Northeast does not.
Well,
So,
because 2% of her population is a different size than 2%.
Just
so
bigger
it's
number.
really number of students. Okay, I got that
Yeah.
one. Yeah. So am I right, Dave? Is that 0.2 is just a 1 FTE allocated evenly among all 5 schools?
Yeah, they're called sort of an ITIN resource, right? So I just put a 0.2 across, just not knowing exactly what the precise allocation would be.
Yeah, I mean, the cost is the same and they do whatever they have to do. They spend whatever time they have to spend at a school and
You're exactly right, Dean.
Yeah.
But
so
we
I
got to
just
look
wanted
at that. I will
clarify
take that back to look at with Dave because we do have those funds in the DODEA World Language Grant.
So if it doesn't say Spanish, then where would Spanish be? Because, for example, in Groton Middle School, Spanish 4.5 FTEs, but you never see Spanish called out specifically in the elementaries. So which one of the certified staff would be the Spanish instructor?
So we do have a full-time FTE Spanish and a full-time FTE French
Right.
that goes to all 5 elementary schools so we can afford a carousel model for our students so that they get 1 semester of French and 1 semester of Spanish.
Right.
And that's all worked out intricately. And the cost of that is really in the grant. So I'm telling you, there's probably an error in this, which I will fix. And there could be even some cost savings in all of this.
Okay, so it's not sort of repackaged as some other staff
No.
buried in
There's
with
no
another
hidden
function.
agenda. It's just a mistake, I think.
Now,
Okay.
Dean, I'm wondering if
on
the
it.
Spanish is the one in the grant and the French is the one that ended up in the board. So I'll
Well,
just double
it
check
could
for
be-
you.
Yeah, we'll
Yeah,
double
maybe.
check.
Thank you.
Okay, I wanted to say thank you to Chris. You sort of led the way tonight. You've led the way with
Thank you,
our
Chris.
very successful magnet program. And thank you for answering our questions tonight.
Thank you.
And I believe next up was Mr.
Seth
Dan.
Danner and Charles Barnum.
I don't think I have anything left to say. I think it's all been said. And I'm
Well,
going
you
to
have
say
your
it for
own.
everybody else. They don't have to say anything else. So what we're talking about at our school is we're in a transition. We have started with one partner for a magnet school, and we are way newer than Chris's school. I think she said 2008 or 7 or something like that. It was a while ago. We're not even close to that. So we started somewhere. We partnered with Renzulli and got a great start, but we've kind of broken away from that. So right now where we're at is we're in a transition. We're looking to partner with Denison Pequot for some outdoor stuff and so for some classroom partnerships and actually some family partnerships next year. That's one of the things that's actually not in the budget, which you're looking at. But we're working towards it. So it came late and that's what we're doing. So we're kind of in a transition phase. We've done things right now we're in Thursday afternoons. We spend 60 minutes working with students. They get to choose what an activity that they want to work on and they get to grow in that area. That's our discovery piece. That threw me off when you moved that screen. So that's kind of where we are with our magnet process. We have Cheryl that came over from CK. I think she was Chris, correct me if I'm wrong, she was a 3rd grade teacher over there, and she is now partnering with us and you. And she takes the lead on just about everything magnet related, which has been fantastic. That's a big piece of what we're doing with our staff. As far as SEL and our math and our literacy tutors go, it is huge. Chris already touched on it, and I don't want to go into depth on it, but I can't say enough about what all of our support staff does for everyone at the school. That's the classroom teachers, that's administration, that's special ed, that's everyone. They are a huge piece of what we do. Our SEL tutor added, I don't know, sometime during COVID or right after COVID or something like that. And I can't tell you how much she takes away from everybody else in what she's doing. It's just fantastic. A wonderful job. Love it. Another big piece of our budget, our instructional budget, since we've started, we have been replacing books at our school. I noticed up a little bit higher, it actually has a bunch of X's when our school's, I think it's 1965 is when our school is. It doesn't say it, can't quite see it on that screen, but we've been
Can
around
you
for a
bring that
long
down,
time.
Phil?
Justice, look, see, it says XXX right there. I can see it. See it right there. XXX.
Was it
1965,
64?
1965. That's what it was. And so we've been replacing books for several years since I've been there. We are weeding out the library. Our media specialist has been going crazy, taking out books that are outdated, that are not appropriate with our DEI initiative, all kinds of things. And then we're trying to build our classroom library. So every year we're spending an enormous amount on books, along with everything else that we're doing. And we have our academy program. I'm not sure how many folks are aware of our academy program, but we have the 4-5. Jamie can talk about the K1, 2, and 3 program at her school. Essentially, it's a behavior program, but we have some students from around the district that are in our building. And they're incorporated just like everybody else into the school. And occasionally that costs a little bit extra. So I know Denise might touch on that. So that's the quick overview of Barnum. And I wanted to go 30 minutes less than Chris went. So that's where I'm at. You're welcome, Chris.
Okay, so Beverly had her hand up, then Matt, then Adrian, then Ian.
Thank you, Jay. How do you determine, Mr. Dana, how many paraprofessionals you need?
I'm sorry, what? How many what?
Paraprofessionals do you need? How do you determine how many you need?
We usually go through the process. That's determined through our PPTs with parents and families and things like that. And it depends on the need of the student. So we have the academy program. So a lot of those students come with one-to-one paraprofessionals or tutors, one or the other, because of the need of the student. It could be behavior related, usually most of the time. And it comes through that team decision. It's not like one person decides what's going on and we go from there. It's usually a group decision. And we talk with Susan and Phil and Denise to make sure that we're on track with everything and we're providing the least amount of support that's needed, but to make sure that the student is successful.
So all your paraprofessionals, the 16 paraprofessionals that you have, they're all special ed paraprofessionals?
That's correct.
Okay. And did your supply budget go up or down this year?
My supply, I don't know where you're looking right
I'm
now.
looking at general classroom supplies and course-specific supplies. Did they increase this year or did they decrease? I'm just curious.
No, actually, mine stayed relatively similar. I know that we upped it maybe by 2% or something like that as across the board for all the schools, but they were pretty similar. That's all of the stuff that's, goes directly to the classroom and for students.
So you have no regular ed paraprofessionals? All your paraprofessionals are special ed?
every paraprofessional is special ed. We have some kindergarten aides. We have 6 in the kindergarten classrooms. We have 3 kindergarten classrooms, and we have 6 of those that are for the general classroom. But otherwise, everything is for special education.
And there's a few lunch recess aides too, Beverly.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Okay, next was Matthew.
Sorry, I need to unmute myself. Good evening. Seth, I was intrigued when you mentioned that part of the transition for partnerships was with parental partnerships. Could you give a little more color about that?
So what it amounted to was with the Renzulli partnership that we had, we were finding that we were spending quite a bit of money on finding out where kids were interested in things. And we were discovering that we could do that on our own in a certain way without paying all that money. So we decided to stop that partnership because we weren't utilizing their online platform. We tried for 2 or 3 years to make sure that we were using it, and we just weren't doing a good job of it and weren't following through with it. And we were still doing the same thing. So we kind of stopped that, and now we were looking for something else because we needed some sort of partner outside the school to help us out with certain things. And we were starting to lean towards Denison Pequot. They're local. It would be a good thing. And the property behind our school has opened up that we can have access now. And all of a sudden they were the ones that were helping out with that. So big advantage to us.
So did I misunderstand you? Because I thought I heard you say you were also working on some parental partnerships. If I misunderstood you, I apologize. If I understood correctly, is that a model? Could you describe the model that you're looking at?
I think you meant to involve the parents, like in the hikes. Like Seth has always been my hiking principal. He's done it
I
since
know
he was a
that.
middle school guy. And
Absolutely.
so he's really, from the inception of his model, he's always wanted to invest more in outdoor education opportunities for the students. And I think you were referring to some of those hikes and outdoor experiences with families as well.
Did I say parental?
That's what I heard.
Parents,
Dennis-
family. Yeah.
Oh, so the partnership that we're looking at, maybe what I meant was Denison Pequot is they are looking to provide, if we can work it out, multiple partnerships, at least 3 with each individual classroom, and family engagement opportunities as well in the outside.
Great.
That might be what I meant. If you meant
That's
parental,
great.
I
That's
don't
great.
know.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
That's as far as I can go with that.
Thank
Sorry.
you very much.
Okay, Adrian.
Unmute. Sorry about that. Yeah, my question again goes to reading in your opinion. So district-wide, I think about 47% of our kids are below state benchmarks benchmark in reading levels. So I see you've got 2 remedial reading teachers. Is that sufficient to teach the amount of kids that are below grade level in tier 1 and tier 2 intervention?
We've been working on that process. I don't know, over the course of the last 4 or 5 years. So we revamped our remediation program in the last couple of years, and we did it again this year because of coming out of COVID. So right now we have 3 people, or 5. One is part-time and one is a full-time tutor. So we have all those people working in there, and we take as much advantage of them as we possibly can. So I feel like we're doing pretty good with the remediation piece right now. Our big focus, I guess, would be working on making sure that the remediation and the tier 1 folks are working on the same thing when they're working on small groups. That's a big focus, because the students that are having struggles, when one person's working on one thing and someone else is working on something completely different, it can be confusing to those students. So we're working on that process right now, trying to refine that.
And then just, I'm wondering, are your class sizes similar to that of Chris? Or I'm just trying to get an understanding of if there's any schools that have larger class sizes or smaller. So we don't have to go into every little thing, but can you comment on that quickly?
Mine rotate because we're military. So I can have very high class sizes, 22, 23 at some point, and then they can drop right down to 14 or 13 the next year, depending on how boats come in and go out. So our class sizes rotate very quickly. If you want a quick comment, our students that are in 5th grade that have been there since kindergarten, usually that class of what would normally be 60 in the other schools for 3 classes, we usually have about 15 to 20 students that have been at Barnum for all 6 years. So we fluctuate big time.
And even
All right.
during the year, Adrian, he's saying even during the year, that class of 22 could go down to 14 at some point in the year, but then they can pop back up again. So you have to leave seats and you have to really gauge it as best you can.
Yeah, so you're moving tutors around to kind of assist that as needed, tutors or paras or whatever to assist teachers I'm assuming that if you've got a kindergarten class with 23 kids in it, one teacher probably can't handle that.
Right. We will assist the math and the literacy teams support each level as needed, and they will do the best they can to support that class. And the more need, they rotate their schedule. So we're always moving around.
Right.
Can I
All right,
just
thank
add
Just,
this?
just a note, in our binder, behind the white tab, are the class sizes for each elementary school as of October 1st, the PSIS. Obviously, those change almost daily, but just for the board's reference, if they want to review those. And next, I was going to recognize Ian.
Thank you. So I was just to follow a little bit on Adrian's questions. With the amount of transient nature of the population there, could you just describe to me like the what's an intake process like when a new student shows up to try to get them to figure out their levels and and then as they enter a grade level, I mean, these students are coming from all different districts in different states. So what is on a certain level expected for achievement in one state may not be the same as another. Yet age-wise, socially wise, emotional, the student may be on par with, the common 3rd or 4th grader, and but as far as educational levels, maybe a different level. How is that situation handled?
So we'll take any new student that's coming in. The classroom teacher will get a gauge on what's going on. They'll review all the paperwork that has come with the student. And then if they have any type of concern, they will refer to math and they will refer to the literacy team. And then they'll go right straight to some sort of like our student assistance team, and they'll go right in with our assistant principal, and they'll do with the whole team. It'll incorporate SEL, any type of group. That group will come together and see what the needs of the student are, and then we'll try and fit in as best as possible. So although every state has different requirements or different levels that they need to meet, we do the best that we can to find where the student is currently, and then we'll meet that need there, and then we'll provide the support that they need as best as possible. Hope that helps.
Mm-hmm.
You might even
Thank you.
mention your Anchor for Life program that
We
you
do,
and Jake
yeah,
have.
we do have our Anchored for Life program. That's completely military. I don't think that's in all of the other schools. It might be in GME school. I'm not sure if it's in all of the other ones. But we have that as far as a welcome team. It's like I can't even think of the name of it, like a it's not student advisory, but it's a
Student leadership.
A student leadership. Yeah, some sort of student leadership. We have several adults that run it, and Every student that's new to our school, regardless of who they are, they get a buddy when they come in, they get a tour when they come in, they get a welcome kit that's provided by the military. It comes with a welcome bear, like a love you bear type of thing, with journals and all kinds of different things. When they go on deployments, they get special kits. If there are divorces, they get special kits. We have a ton of things that we provide students when they're transitioning. So it's a big part of our program. It came right directly from the military leadership program that we're involved with. And we took advantage of it right away and absolutely love it.
And even as they transition out, there's an aspect of that. Also provided by the military are what they call MFLACs, military family liaisons, and they're social workers. And they work specifically with military children, but they can buddy up. They can bring a friend who's non-military in a small group, but they're all over the building. And they're just another social worker in our building that's afforded by Department of Defense. And it also helps with this Anchor for Life program, because what your question was really a good question, Ian, in that how does a district that brings in 750 kids per year and exits 650 manage and get to know their kids and really assess them so that we can, as fast as we can, move them forward? And that's kind of, I don't want to call it a secret sauce, but that's something Groton has done for a long time really well and continues to really focus on for all kids that are transient so that they feel the belonging.
We have that because of the military. Other places probably don't have that, but that's a huge advantage for us. It's just a nice thing to have. Like, the social piece is more important than any other piece. Anybody could argue that all they wanted to, but if you're not fitting in socially, and being present in the moment, you're not going to learn anything. So it's a big piece for us, and we absolutely take advantage of that. We love it.
Understood. Thank you. So, if there were academic supports needed in the classroom, like say a student was showing a deficiency in reading, would there be a push-in support for that, depending on the level, or would there be sort of a pull-out if the discrepancies significant enough?
Either one.
Okay.
If the teacher feels that there's something going on, or the records show up and show something is needed, we will immediately put that into place and try and figure out what we need to do. So it might be something that's pushed in, it might be something that's pulled out, it might be something that's a small group. There's any number of things we can do. It's different for every kid, so we individualize it for each kid. I would assume, I can't speak for all the schools, but I would assume every school does the same thing.
All right, thank you. And just real quick, just to kind of orient myself, we have the intra-district magnet program amongst all the elementary schools. Yet Charles Barnum has the majority of the military children in that school. How does that relate? Are the children that come into that school offered the opportunity to participate in the lottery to go to one of the other ones?
Every student that comes into the district has the opportunity to apply to any of the schools, as long as there are seats available in those grade levels. If they choose to want to go to that magnet for whatever reason they want to go to it for, they have that opportunity. So like every military student that comes in has the same opportunity that everybody else has. And each of the schools saves a couple of seats just to make sure that those military kids have that same opportunity. So it's not just the beginning of the year or after the new year or one of those things. We provide those opportunities because those students transition, and it's not fair that they don't have the same opportunity that everyone else has. So we do the best we can with that.
For military and other transient, we have seats that we call, I forgot the name of it, but that are for people who are moving, so that they are able to secure a seat in one of the magnets if the enrollment provides it.
Understood. Thank you. And just real quick, since your building is one of the older ones in the district, any significant infrastructure concerns over the past year or especially with the increase in the weather systems, the intensity? Has anything come up that needs to be addressed?
I have no problem communicating with maintenance on the needs that I have. So, anytime something comes up, I address it, and they come over and they give us a hand. We've had some leaks and we've had a few things going on recently. But anytime I have a concern, they are quick to respond, and we work together to figure out what's going on. So it's an old building, but it has charisma. How do you like that? Charisma.
Well, I thank you for your time, and I definitely applaud your efforts for keeping up the old buildings. I
All
think
right, thank you.
it's a great effort, and you
That
know,
goes to
it's
maintenance, not so much me. I do the other stuff, but all right, I will let them know. Thank you.
all right. Appreciate it. Thank you.
And
One
appreciate
last
the
thing.
input.
Sorry.
I'm sorry.
I had one last note here. I forgot to ask about the DODEA grants. What are there specific items in your school that the grants have gone to support?
Those grants, correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm not part of those, Susan, but those grants go to all of us. Even though we have the majority of military students. I think Thames River has a big bunch, and of course the middle school and high school have a bunch as well. But there are military students in each of the schools, so it kind of gets spread out. So our students benefit from that as much as any other student in Groton does.
I think your most recent quest is the Denison Pequot that we're trying to use those DODEA funds for, the newest DODEA. So,
Oh, yes. Well, I'm working on that.
yeah, we're working on
Very
that.
good. Thank you so
Yeah.
much.
And I think Ian's question about the intake process would make an interesting referral to a COW, so we can learn
Yeah.
how all the schools deal with that, because I know Groton does have a large percentage of that. So next I'm going to recognize Andrea. Andrea, you'll need to unmute yourself. You're next, and then it'll be Jen, and then it'll be Bev.
No, I know, I was pressing it, but it wasn't going to go on. At any rate, I found it. Thank you. And I wanted to thank everybody for the very rich conversation that's going on here. And I also wanted to apprise you that Charles Barnum was 1 year old when I came to the district.
Wow.
So I almost didn't ask this question.
I wasn't
Because
1 year old.
You weren't even born.
Well, I had been a twinkle in my father's eye. But at any rate, I almost didn't ask this question because I thought it may have really lie more into curriculum than it does into budget. But then Matthew asked a question that just prodded me to do it. And that is, I think I heard you say, Seth, that you gave up the Renzulli model. And I too have two questions. First of all, why? What was it in the curriculum that caused you to do that? And finally, in terms of a budget, was it worth it?
So as far as giving that up, we were paying, I think, around $3,000 or $4,000 a year to have an online platform and utilize what they were providing for enrichment activities. And we were using their
Interestalizer.
Yeah, we were using their interestalizer. That's what exactly what it was. The interestalizer, and finding out what the student's interest was at the very beginning of the year, and we weren't using anything after that. We just couldn't fit it into our school day. We were having a tough time with it. So knowing what their interestalizer was, and after using that process, we kind of do it on our own now. It's nowhere near as in-depth as theirs is, but we have an idea of the process that we use to find out what the kids want to do. And that's what we're doing on Thursday afternoons. And that's why we kind of gave that up.
And I would say too, that what they've created as a team with the teachers is probably even better, and it suits their community even better. So I applaud them for investigating and using that. but then to also recreate something. And if you haven't gone to in some of these enrichments, you know, I'd be happy to do a walkthrough, because the last time I walked through you know, I was just really amazed at the level of engagement that these students were having and their teachers.
And I understand that and I appreciate that immensely. I just wondered if there was anything in that curriculum, not the interestalizer, but anything in the curriculum and the way they teach it that the other one had a better grasp on. But it sounds to me that that's not the case. And
They
then
actually they sent us out to other websites and resources, and a lot of that stuff we found, and I'm not complaining. A lot of that stuff was broken, and it wasn't as useful. So we weren't using that during our Thursday afternoon. The teachers were creating things. We were creating things on our own, and that's what we were doing. So we didn't find the need to spend the money. When we figured out what the system was like and what we wanted to do. So that's kind of what we
Very
broke
good.
away from it.
okay, very good. Thank you.
And next I'll recognize Jen.
Hi, my question was also on the vendor. And I know that you said you used one aspect of the process and then you discontinued it. And now you're going to move over to Denison Pequot. What is your final view? It's almost like, oh, we gave up the vendor and now we're going to move over to Denison. So your magnet theme is nurturing creativity and curiosity. And so what is your ideal, and like what other organizations are you looking to partnership with to the benefit of the students?
So this one has kind of dropped in our lap. We gave up the other one because we weren't utilizing it. That's kind of what I said to Andrea. We weren't using it
Correct.
at all, and we were spending money on it, and I didn't feel like it was appropriate to keep spending the money year after year. We did it for 3 or 4 years and we weren't utilizing it. So we kind of stopped paying for it, and then we've been waiting and looking for other things. This one has come to us because the property behind our school is available, and it is now opened up for use, and Denison Pequot has been part of it. So we kind of want to partner with them and with Deep to see what we can do back there. The whole nurturing curiosity and creativity and that type of stuff, we still do that every Thursday afternoon. We provide I can't even tell you how many different options throughout the course of the year, probably 20, 25 or more for 2nd through 5th graders. And then the K and 1 get provided with some opportunities that are a little more structured, just for some different type of opportunities for them to explore things that they're interested in. I could go on and on about the things that people offer from the classroom level. I'm not offering one right now, but I previously offered one on building submarines. That was what I offered last fall. So, and that was tied basically to, you know, what a lot of what our community is associated with. So that's where we are. We're trying to find
Okay.
our way. I'll go back to what I said at the very beginning with Chris has been doing the magnet school theme at her school, the STEAM. It wasn't even STEAM, it was STEM. And then it was STEAM. They've been working on that since 2008, and we've been working on this since like 2019 or something. So we're trying to find our way into what's going to fit us.
Sure. Finding the way and having Denison sort of just drop on the lap. And so I just want to try just to make sure and understand like what's your vision, what's your strategic goal, and so how we can support and the budget to help you achieve what, you know, whatever your goals may be.
So their focus is all in the outside behind our school. I've
Mhm.
already talked with them about getting some cameras. We have cameras. The kindergarten team has cameras for eagles, and I can't even tell you what zoo or park it's in. But I've already asked about getting cameras out there because we've walked down there and seen beaver activity. Can we see what the actual activity is behind the school? There are ruins back there that we can explore. They've offered to help us build trails so we can get down there and just explore the outside in the different seasons. So just an outdoor experience. And we're looking to try that out and see if that's going to work for us. So we had to start somewhere. When we dropped the other one and we weren't using it, this one appeared and we were like, let's take advantage of it. So that's where we're at.
Okay, thank you.
And next I'll recognize Beverly.
Thank you, Jay. Seth, I know your school is a national blue ribbon school, but I'll ask you the same question I asked Chris. How is your budget going to help you close the achievement gap? If you have one, you may not have one, but if you do, how's your budget going to increase student achievement?
There's a gap for every school, no matter what school you're talking about. There's always a gap there. So we're looking to that whole tutor piece with the math tutors and the literacy tutors and our SEL tutors. That is huge for us. Those are things that have come about, especially since COVID, that we didn't have before. And it's another person to talk about math. It's another person to talk about literacy. It's another person to talk about behavior or choices or things like that, that take away for some of the things that some of us have to do. And it just adds to that level. It's another person in the building. Those things are huge for us. And that in itself, you know, regardless of the gap or whether there is a gap in any of the schools, I can speak for all 5 of them. Well, I say I am. I don't know if they'll agree with that, but that's one of those things. Like, we just look to have that assistance. Another person is another way of saying something and another way of doing something, and that can only benefit the child.
Can I
there's
just
no other
add
way
this
to say it.
piece too, Seth, to that, what you're saying to support you in that? We're really so fortunate in Groton. Many of our tutors are retired certified teachers in this district who've had that specialized training. And even with that, and even the, you know, maybe some of the younger people getting into education who are really interested, we have support systems because we have a math specialist and a literacy specialist in every building, and interventionist. So they work as a team. I've heard you say, Seth, a couple times, the literacy team, the math team. So they work together. So those tutors come on board and they get embedded coaching from the staff, so that when they're with the kids alone, then they really have that high quality instruction as well, because they've been taught by some masters, or they are masters themselves. So we're very fortunate that way.
How much time, Susan, does a tutor spend with a student? Is it like
Well,
a half an hour?
Yeah, I would say so, but the principals would know better than that. They really create the schedules, and the schedules are created based on student need.
Okay.
It's 100% based on student needs. So sometimes the tutor will be with a student a couple of days a week. Sometimes they'll be with them 5 days a week. It depends on the need of the student, and it depends on what they're working on. So we have anywhere from a little bit of time to a lot of bit of time. I think I made that up. No, that was made up.
Susan, this is a question for you. I noticed some schools have social workers and some schools do not.
They all do.
Oh,
Everyone
okay.
has a social worker. I think because of the size and needs at CB and Northeast Academy, they have a shared social worker, but also in the programs in Seth's Academy program, he has an additional social worker that works with a special ed teacher, or there's a position that we're trying to replace with that. And then there's the MFLACs, which are the social workers provided by the military, and those are in every school, either part-time or full-time.
Because I didn't see one listed in Catherine Kanaski School.
They also have one.
Some are in the grant, so they don't show up.
Some are in Title I grant, so you might not see them in operations.
All right, thank you.
And we also have mental health clinicians with school-based help in all of our schools,
who have a wait list, may I add. We'd like to get more families involved in that. That's a terrific opportunity.
Matthew, did you have another question?
I did. Thank you very much, Jay. I'm still unmuted. Think I'm unmuted now.
You're
Can
good.
you hear me?
We
Okay,
can hear you.
thank you. I wanted to follow up on Bev's question because the question of achievement gap has been long-standing. I don't know how many years, whether it's 1 decade, 2 decades, but the question going back to why can't Johnny read? It's been a long-standing issue. It's been exacerbated by COVID with its academic and social impacts. So Susan has helped me understand that one way we address the our progress over our academic achievement gap is progress of the individual student over time. But there is this second piece, which is the state standards. And I think that's what, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's what Bev was getting at. And, you know, I guess my question is to all the principals and Susan, what kind of targets are we setting to actually visibly and rapidly, hopefully, get our state standards up in reading, math, and science, particularly reading, because it's the foundation for everything else. So you're a math teacher, you might think math is the foundation. That's okay.
We could probably spend the rest of the night just talking
Yeah.
about that. And I think we actually did a couple of meetings ago.
Yeah.
Just in the interest of this not going all night, I'm wondering if we could stick to the agenda item, which
budget.
is the budget.
Thank you.
Well, I certainly respect your wishes, but I also think that as we allocate funds for budget, you know, the deliverable is individual progress. The deliverable is also the academic standards, but I will incline before your wishes.
And Jen, did you have a question?
Just the last one. This is for Susan. And shame on me for not knowing. Is there a goal to reduce the number of military students going to Charles Barnum and have it spread more? I know you earlier in the presentation, it was stated that like there were a couple of seats, but as military parents move in, you know, I feel like this brochure that this document that we're reviewing would be like something good that we can share. So, but
So I would say
is there
that
a goal, yeah, to move
No,
more? And
it's no, there's not a goal specifically to move them out. But I found that military families are families that really are particularly interested in magnet themes. As a matter of fact, many of our military families were choosing to go to New London schools, Learn schools, and even Ledyard schools from the time I've been here, and I think before, you know, when they had those opportunities. So by providing intra-district magnets in our own district, we've really brought a lot of folks back, and we've really seen some efficiencies in our budget because of that. But they still have choice. But I think it gives them broader choice, that they're not just limited to one school. That's true for all of our families. And they might find, you know, a theme that they find appealing, even at Northeast Academy. So we've got military families really in all our schools now. But I would still say that Seth's building has the majority of the military families. He has the largest number and really has some programs in there to really take care of those specific needs of transient kids and families. So, but there's no quest in any one of the schools to try to move them out. It's just to give more opportunity for our families.
I've experienced that they like the military community, but they also like the options to go elsewhere. So they have expressed interest, military families, in going to the other schools as well, just because of the choice. So they having the option is good for them.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Seth. We appreciate everything that
Thank
you
you.
do, and sounds like you're on an exciting quest to discover your magnet theme, and
Or
we look
discover
forward to
supper.
and see what you do. We'll be watching. All right, and who's up next?
Mystic River Magnet, Steve Wheeler.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. So piggybacking on what Seth just said, this is our third year at Mystic River with our magnet theme, which is play and ingenuity. This is something that has been evolving, obviously, over the past few years. Just some highlights in our building. With our play and ingenuity theme, we do offer enrichment on our Friday blocks. And we have a 40-minute play block that's included in that day as well. And during that time, students are, this allows them to be able to select from electives that have been developed by classroom teachers. And those students that pick those electives, they'll carry that over a semester. Some of those electives have worked very hard at developing. The kids are really excited about that. And some of those include we've gotten as far as organizing Lego robotics, getting into actually writing plays. There's outdoor hiking that involves orienteering in Nature Conservancy. We do have trails behind our building. There is a wetland as well. So we've been working with Groton Open Space on that too. And we also incorporate the arts and music with electives there. We meet once a month as an entire building to celebrate our community. And we focus on superpowers, character traits, and those come up. Students are nominated and highlighted for demonstrating and showing those superpowers. Some of the ongoing work that our teachers and staff have been really digging into is looking at infusing play and ingenuity within our core blocks. So we've started small by really focusing on math and science. Those areas kind of lend themselves to be able to look at core curriculum and infuse our theme there. Our staff have given time during summer and the beginning of the school year to work with some of our district folks to create and write that curriculum. So that is an ongoing, evolving part of our theme. In addition to that, we have partnered nicely with Pfizer. That doesn't cost us anything, but we have been able to get some Lego kits through them, and we are really looking to grow that partnership a little bit deeper, as I think that would feed really nicely into the ingenuity piece. In addition, we have made a partnership with the Niantic Children's Museum. And a little bit later on, I can kind of talk about how we've allotted some of that into our budget, because that is not free. So that partnership is great, but it does come at a cost. I think the other principals highlighted this really super well, that our staff are key to making this theme alive and breathing. And we meet regularly to continue to plan and develop the theme as we evolve. Mystic River also is home to several programs in the district. We do house the ABA, which is an autistic program. We have 4 classrooms that accommodate students from K through 5, upwards of 8 to 9 students that are severely impacted with autism in those classrooms. They are obviously staffed with certified teachers and paraprofessionals. In addition, we have a preschool program. Not program, we have a preschool classroom that I deem as part of our ABA program, because those littles are also very impacted, with autism as well. So we do house that at Mystic River. We also have a pre-K program and 3 preschool classrooms. So it's a very busy place on any day that you walk in, on any given day that you walk in. When I go to look at just some highlights with our budget, as I had mentioned, we are looking, at really growing those partnerships and being able to allocate some funds to be able to get in folks like the Niantic Children's Museum. We are also looking at developing and building an outdoor learning classroom. I think that's a huge part of the hands-on playful learning, especially in our grades K through 1 preschool as well. But that does cost money, and it does cost, it really provides us an opportunity to plan for that. Great way to get kids outside, and, alternative learning styles. In addition to that, looking at priorities, we do have a high population of students that are English language learners, at-risk students, and special ed students as well. So we have tutors like everyone else, and we cherish them. So a priority next year that I really feel is going to be critical is our tutors. We do have SEL tutors. Those are our social emotional folks that work very hard with students. They see them on a regular basis with check-ins and check-outs. They help see them in small group for social skills. They even help throughout the day in the building when there's crisis needed, a student that really is dysregulated. And they help at any given moment in the day. It can be in the cafeteria, it can be out at recess. Their supports are huge. So when we think about priorities, that's where my head goes. In addition, we have our ELA and math tutors that are servicing students that are doing the push-in supports and also taking some small groups out, in addition to our reading and math interventionists and specialists. So we really relish those tutors. They're an integral part of the day and they do support student learning. In addition, like I said, we have EL tutors that come in and support our multi-language learners throughout the day. I think when I also go back and look at our budget and where we've looked at trying to support, our students and our teachers, I'm really looking at, I know this was kind of already stated by Seth and Chris, but we are really looking at beefing up and supporting our literacy programs within Groton. And we have spent a lot of time talking about classroom libraries, focusing on upper grades to really target those high interest texts, but at various different levels. So students have books in hands that they're reading that are at their level, they're feeling successful at. And those high interest book sets are really things that we're kind of looking towards. I think that's probably it for me. If anyone has questions.
So I recognize Beverly.
Thank you, Jay. I noticed that you have 2 assistant principals. Can you tell me what specifically those 2 assistant principals do, that you need 2 of them?
Absolutely, Bev. Thank you. I wouldn't want to start a day without them. We do have, I know that the projected enrollment for next year is 486, but we do have over 500 students in our building. We have the highest population of special ed students, I believe, in the district. We have one of our assistant principals does a tremendous job working with the special ed population. She spends a lot of time in PPT meetings. She spends a lot of time prepping for those meetings and working with students and families. In addition, our second assistant principal helps support instruction. Math, his focus is on math. He gets in and out of classrooms. He meets with the math specialists and the math tutors. He runs our math data team meetings with classroom teachers. And he supports, with myself and Shira, he does support the social and emotional learning of our students. And we spend a lot of time in and out of classrooms supporting that and working with students throughout the day.
Thank you, Mr. Whalen. My other question is your supply budget. Did it go up from last year or is it about the same?
It probably did go up. I think one of the things, like I had mentioned prior, we have a large building. We have a large number of staff members, and I want to be able to support the good work they do. And we want to make sure that they have everything they need to support instruction and learning with students. I also know it's very important, being a new magnet school, if you will. Play and ingenuity is one that is very out of the box. It's not something that we don't normally hear about. I think I always tell this to folks when they come in. I think there's only one other school on the East Coast. It's in South Carolina. that has this very exact same theme, but being able to support that building wide does require us to get supplies that will help support teachers as they run through and create their electives for students.
Thank you. And I know you could say that everything in your budget will help increase student achievement, but can you be more specific? Like what specifically in your budget do you think will really make a difference in student achievement?
Yeah, Bev, I think one of the things that we try very hard to do is listen to teachers as they come to us during our data team meetings and our data plannings, our data planning meetings. And part of that listening is, yes, we have a core curriculum that is district-wide, but what else do they need to support that learning? So one of the things that we've spent a lot of time talking about this year is supporting literacy materials for students, book sets, level text, things that we know that students are going to rip through and teachers need hands-on to be able to meet with small groups with those students and to be, really be able to meet and flesh out those skills that those students need. Our math team has done a really nice job as well, meeting with teachers and asking what supplies they maybe need for math. One of the things that we've been pushing hard at Mystic is to embrace that theme, play and ingenuity. Math is certainly an area where we can do that. But sometimes it does require us to be able to purchase materials, to run small groups or play-based games.
And can you tell me one last question, then I'll be done. Out of your
You're good.
39 paras, how many are regular ed paras?
Yeah, so I can't remember who mentioned it. We do have 4 classrooms of kindergarten and those aides that are in there support all the students in that room. In addition, we do have recess and lunch aides. We, as I had stated, Bev, prior, we do house the ABA program, 4 classrooms, 5 if you count that one preschool ABA room. And those students, many of those students in that program require a one-to-one para, although we have been moving to a different direction with that so that we can offer more shared enhanced supports there. But we do have a very large number of paraprofessionals. When the whole staff comes together, it's a sight to see.
And it really takes all 3, 2 assistants and 1 principal, to manage that many people and make sure that if someone's out, your bases are covered. So it really is, our 2 newest schools really are ones that took in a couple schools to make one. So we still have 500 and something children that were at Pleasant Valley and Mary Morrison, and we're at Claude Chester and SB Butler. So we have the same amount of kids and the same amount of needs. We've just housed them in one larger building. So,
yeah, and I do think we have Nadine Macklin. Sorry, she's going to kill me. I just said her maiden name. Nadine Macklin. We do have. She supports us with preschool in terms of PPTs and special ed meetings that we have. But we have found that on any given week, we've got 3 strong days that are solid with our special ed meetings. And as Susan had just stated, one of our assistant principals is very much in charge of that. It allows the remaining 2 to be able to get into classrooms, observe instruction, and spend time with students.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate everything that you do for our students.
Thank you, Bev.
All right, thank you. Before I recognize Andrea and then Ian, I just want to mention that in addition to the principals tonight, we do have many of the assistant principals are online. Denise Doolittle is here. Nadine Macklin is online. Also, several of the special education.
a lot of our teachers too are here, and I really appreciate
There
it.
are teachers here. I see at least 1 para, and I just want to thank all of you for participating. I think you should also get a certificate of merit in your personnel file for sitting through a Board of Ed meeting. And with that, Andrea.
Jay, I'm going to apologize to you because this too is not exactly on budget, but in my view it is. And I almost, again, didn't ask this question until Bev asked something. And my question is, I've always had concerns about classroom libraries. No, how do we know that a child is moving up and up and up in the choices that she or he makes? How do we know that that child is just not staying at the same level? And what data do we have on that? And perhaps that really would be a question for curriculum, and also for, maybe we could invite Susan to come to curriculum as well. But that's my question. And what data do we have that prove that the children are moving forward as they choose their own reading material?
Maybe the chair of curriculum could bring that to her committee.
I think I just did. Thank you.
So that is one of the things in our budget. It's called the Master Class of Reading, where, or the M class, where we're using a Dibbles 8 product, which has been designated by the state. And we're really going to be doing it K5. We're doing it K3 right now. But that data is essential. So we are affording that in this budget, but that data is essential. It really helps us provide instruction, the leveled books, but not only leveled books. In the very beginning, they need more decodable books. So purchasing those decodable books is going to be part of the right to read. So that all ties in with budget, but it definitely is worthy of a much deeper, richer discussion.
And
So
what
we
I'm
use
asking
that
for,
data to inform us what the kids are understanding and what they're not, so we can target our instruction to meet their needs, so that helps them to grow.
that's my question. How are we targeting it? And because they are choosing their own reading material, how are we monitoring that so that we know that we're moving them forward while they're still having their own choices?
So one of the shifts in the balance of reading is they're not just, and they never really all just picked it themselves. When they go to the library, there's some picking, but there's also some leadership with the library media specialist, with the classroom teacher. So the teacher is actually selecting some of the books that go in their book bin and reading them with them. But then there's also some choice, but the teacher's monitoring that so that they know that they are getting what they need.
Okay, we'll put that on our calendar.
That's definitely on a future calendar.
On the agenda, yes. Thank you.
Yeah.
And next I'll recognize Ian.
Thank you. Yeah, just wanted to check in on the overall infrastructure of the building. Any capital improvement projects, or how's the new building working out? Any unexpected occurrences? And also just wanted to make a note that I do commend all the experiential education opportunities that have been put forth over the other schools, as well as this one. I think that's great to utilize the area around the school as an opportunity for education.
Yeah. Ian, in terms of the infrastructure of the building, I'm just thrilled to be in a new school. I know I was at SB Butler prior to that. So being in a brand new building is, is extremely nice. We have not had, well, no, we have had some infrastructure issues, but like Seth had said, our maintenance department has responded very quickly. Susan and Phil are usually the first people I call. But we have had some issues with the building. I don't know if you want to call them settling or what have you, but there's been a couple of leaks that were quickly cleaned up, but they were significant leaks. They were one that was inside of a wall behind a water fountain. Another one was in between the nurse's station and the assistant principal's office. There was a leak there. And then we had a partial ceiling that let go in our cafeteria. It was one of these ceilings that was just kind of held with cables. It was more like for an aesthetic look. It wasn't really part of the ceiling per se. But we had an issue with that. I guess you can call those the aches and pains and growings of a settling of a new school. But that's pretty much it. I think one of the things that is a huge help is the cameras that are that are outside the building, the cameras that are in the hallways and so forth. Those are utilized, to our advantage, if you will. It's nice to be able to see what's going on the outside. by, being able to monitor that throughout the day.
Thank you very much.
All right. Well, thank you, Steve. And thank you for all the great work you're doing over at Mystic River. And as Ian mentioned, it's great to hear that so many of the schools have activities around getting outdoors. And that we are so fortunate that so many of the schools are near areas that can be utilized for that. And so who's next?
So next is Ryan Cheney, Northeast Academy. They were our second magnet school, and they're the arts magnet.
All right, good evening, everyone. As you will see from my budget sheet, which I would imagine will come up at any moment here, a lot of our budget, with us being an art school, is centered around our partnerships with really some local groups that have been able to strengthen our overall offerings for our students. So in a building of roughly 390 kids, we fluctuated to low fours, high threes, but we've always been right around 400 students in my 5 years here. Some of our most recent partnerships are local ones. We've tapped in quite a bit to the Mystic Museum of Art in downtown Mystic, and that partnership is going on year 3 there. We are also starting to this year, it actually started last year, but this is year 2 of our work with the Connecticut Storytelling Center, which is based out of New London. We have a resident storyteller that comes in and spends 6 sessions per grade level with all of our grades. And we are looking to expand that work up into 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade this year. Really excited about her work. We also are starting to look ahead to the future a little bit. Many of you have been to our full-scale drama productions in past years, and we are expecting to have a little bit of a change in terms of who facilitates that work for our kids. And so I've been trying to work with the Flock Theater, which is out of New London as well. It's very close to the Guard, and they will give us hopefully an opportunity to strengthen our drama production, but also perhaps build some capacity for our teachers. Other partners for us, we work with the Coast Guard. They come in and support our band work, and that's on a volunteer basis, which is wonderful for them. We go there once a year for their concert, and our band teacher has a great rapport with some folks there. And something that we've tried to kind of build over the recent years, which hasn't really gained too much traction, but we still work on it, is the ECSO, the Eastern Connecticut Symphony Orchestra. They come into our building once a week on Monday nights, and they run an outside program, but we really want to work with them and have them come in to support our strings program. So when you look at our instructional services number, a lot of that money goes towards our partnerships along with our field trip budget as well. In terms of course specific stuff, I do want to say a couple of people have talked about materials. We have talked a lot as a staff very recently about decodable text in the early grades, and really trying to support our youngest learners and match them with the texts that are appropriate for the phonics skills that they are currently working on with their teachers. So that is something that we want to make sure we have money set aside for. All of my colleagues have talked substantially about our tutors. I also want to give a huge shout out to our paraprofessionals. We may have, one of the smallest number of paras in our building, but they are most certainly worth their weight in gold. And when you look at the overall, the pie chart of a school, they do a lot of the heavy lifting. Our tutors and our paraprofessionals, they support the operations of this school on a day-to-day basis. Someone did point out that we have a part-time social worker. We do share that social worker with Charles Barnum. That position was new to us a couple of years ago, and it is a position that we utilize substantially. You've heard SEL mentioned quite a bit tonight, social emotional learning, and our social workers, not only do they support our kids, but they really go above and beyond for our families and for our community. They will get into the weeds and really figure out what parents and what family members need to help support that holistic approach for children. So that is really an important part of what we do. We're excited about what's ahead for us. We have a newly formed arts committee at our school that is in the process of sort of evaluating where we are at as a building with our arts offerings and trying to determine what we might be missing. It's something that we did a couple of years ago with our staff, and dance was something that came out. Our teachers were very interested in dance to the school, which is really where we ended up with the Connecticut Storytelling Center, and that's a lot of the work that she does with our kids. So arts is a very widespread area. There's a lot you can do with arts, and we look forward to continuing the work.
Ryan, could you also talk a little bit about the family engagement? Like you do the whole regional arts program, and that'll happen this spring. And I really would encourage board members to attend. It's a 4-day event or a 3-day event. And I know it started before you got here, but you kept it really moving along, even somehow through COVID. We've kept that going. So, but that's a really important piece of what Northeast Academy. And I think, Jay, going back to when you had a son in the school, when Charlie was there.
Yeah, one of my fondest memories of Dr. Grenier was my first year at Northeast, and he looked at me, I think maybe about 3 days before, and said, "You need to go back and cancel Celebrate the Arts." And I said, "What do you mean? This is all I've heard about for 8 months now." But it's a 2-day event at our school. This year it's Thursday, March 14th and Friday, March 15th. And it's all about the arts community. We bring in not just local performers and local groups, but we bring back a lot of our former students. We have many, many groups from Groton Middle School and Fitch High School who come to perform for our students. And as I said to our secondary colleagues, it's a beautiful opportunity for our kids to see their potential future. And it's also wonderful for our staff to see former students. And a lot of those kids that you see on stage, if you go to a GMS or an FHS production, are former Northeast kids. I may not have had them. Again, this is year 5 for me, but I can tell you our staff loves it. And really, it's 2 full days committed to the arts. We'll have folks from the Mystic Museum of Art there. We'll have local artists that come in, and we have all of our kids following a schedule and running through various opportunities to engage in the arts, really throughout the entire building.
All right, thank you very much, Ryan. Did anyone have any questions about NEA?
I do, Jay. I'm just curious about the community coordinator position.
I'll get you next, Ian.
I'm sorry.
Yep. So Bev, I believe all of us have a community coordinator. Susan, if I'm correct,
That's
me.
right.
Yep, you're right.
Bev, our community coordinator does a lot of work. They are basically our assistant secretary. They're our second set of hands in our main office. They also, for us, number one, she has done a tremendous amount of work with the district mentor program, which I have to give a shout out to Jen Anthony on. She has really rebuilt that program very well. And our community coordinator handles all correspondence on that, arranges the mentors, the communication between the mentor and the teacher, scheduling, all of that. Our community coordinator also handles volunteers. So if we have parents that come in for a volunteer training with myself or Mrs. Wheeler, that all goes through her as well. And we have seen our volunteer program, or I should say the number of volunteers that we have, continue to grow coming out of the pandemic. So it's kind of like a MacGyver. She does a little bit of this and a little bit of that, but it is certainly community-based.
Okay, and next I'll recognize Ian.
Thank you. Similar question that I've asked to the rest of the schools. Any sort of significant infrastructure concerns? And also, I'm curious to know, I'm not sure if I missed it or not, but does Northeast Academy have an outdoor, or are you in development of an outdoor component similar to the other elementary schools?
No, we do not. To answer that second question first. And to answer your first question, the one thing I would point out is prior to my arrival, there were air quality concerns at Northeast Academy. Fuss and O'Neill did a lengthy report. And I know one of the long-term recommendations there was to begin replacing the air handler units on the top of the building. So I think that is somewhere in the CIP projects, perhaps fiscal year 26. I will say our maintenance department has been responsive to those needs. This year, a storm water drainage system, I'm proud of myself for saying that correctly, was added essentially along the entire right side of our building. And that was a large project, and the point of that was to help with getting water away from the building. Northeast is essentially built on swamp, give or take. So when you think about big term projects, Ian, to answer your question, the air handler units would be the one.
And can I add to Ryan's outdoor education? His teachers have always been known to get the kids out on the trails or walk around the building. And I think there is a trail right outside. It might be a short trail, but there is some outdoor learning that goes on. And they really make a concerted effort. You'll see them all bundled up in the middle of the winter, you know, with their boots and everything, and they're outdoors. So I would say for all of our schools, that is a high priority. And I think it's really exciting for us to have that and for the kids.
All right. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
And Beverly.
Ryan, can you explain again? I didn't catch everything you said. The instructional services line item for $12,000.
Yeah, a lot of that money, Bev, goes to the Connecticut Storytelling Center. That's the majority of what that money is intended to be spent on.
And did your supply budget go up from last year?
Minuscule. It's always been in the low 20s. A lot of that money goes towards our bid list, general supplies, but if that went up, I don't have last year's figure in front of me, but if it went up, it was not large.
And how would you say your budget is going to help increase student achievement?
Well, I hate to be redundant, but a lot of this revolves around our staff, and staffing is critical. I can't speak enough to what the work of our tutors and our paraprofessionals do on top of our certified staff. In terms of supplies, I think a lot of our thinking and a lot of our future planning needs to be around what type of literature do we need to support the growth of our kids with their reading. And that's where I mentioned earlier intentionally the use of decodable text in our lower grades. We've put a lot of energy, focus, capacity into phonics this year. And one of the things we're really hearing loudly from our teachers is we need the appropriate text to match what they're working on in class. And that's an area where I think we really need to take a look at. So I do expect us to spend money on that going forward.
And I'm not even going to wait for operations. I really feel that that's a high priority in this Right to Read grant. We've got it in there. It's a 2-year grant. So we're actually investigating a program called our decodable texts, which have gotten really, they're notable from the state's aspect and from a lot of colleagues. So it's called Geode. So we're going to be investing in some of that this year, as soon as this year.
Thank you. And thank you, Ryan. And thank you for your dedication to our students. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep. Thank you, Ryan. And again, you know, your faculty came up with Celebrate the Arts many years before it became a magnet. And so it was only natural that you would become the arts magnet for the district. And you folks have just done a fantastic job. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Jay.
And I think that brings us to Thames River.
Jamie Giordano.
Yay! And
Yay.
I'm sorry, sorry that my name doesn't appear. I was trying to fix it, but it doesn't give me the option. So I'm just Thames. So I'm going to start. My colleagues obviously have said so much, and I echo all of what they say about staff. It really does take the entire building to make the school tick. And basically, I'm going to start with that as far as our mission statement is belong. So it's an acronym for us, and we take it really seriously. We say it every day. I'm wearing announcements. And with each letter, it has a different theme. And the reason I'm saying that is because we purchase books to go along with each of the letters to help teach our students what each of those letters mean. We also focus with a one book in the fall. So the whole school reads a book, and then at the end of the year, we read a book. We purchase those books, and that goes along also with our belong theme in addition to our magnet theme. We have different district programs at Thames. We have many, actually. We have the district transitional kindergarten, and that class, Beverly, does have a regular ed para. All of our other paras, though, are special ed paras, except for, of course, how the other principals mentioned are K-aides. We have 3 integrated preschool classrooms, and with that, thankfully, we do have an SEL tutor for our preschool students, which is much needed. And Steve and I share a social worker that travels back and forth between Mystic and Thames. Really wish she could be full-time, of course. I'm sure you do too, Steve. We also have a pre-K program at Thames, and then we do have the 2 district academy programs, the K1 and 2-3, and then Seth, of course, has the 4-5. So a lot going on with those programs. They make up a part of our school, which is great. Our 2 magnet themes, marine and environmental sciences, we absolutely love, and we have incredible partners to help with those themes. Our main partner is Project Oceanology. They, when we first started, developed project-based lessons for each of our grade levels, and we have an educator assigned to each of the grade levels to work with them. We get so much from those projects. They come into school to teach lessons. We go to Project Doe, we go out in the boat, 4th grade goes on a seal watch. It's pretty incredible. And they culminate with a take action that students really love and involve themselves in. And they range in the different take action projects that they do. It also includes professional development. Have to toot the horn there too with Project Doe, because all they give, it comes down to like dollars per student for that cost. So it's really great, because they also do things where they come to our recycling nights or they come to our World Ocean Day, and they don't charge anything extra with that. They do also come for preschool and do some critter bins. So it's a whole school with Project Doe. We additionally partner with New England Science and Sailing, and we have AmeriCorps representatives that are in our building for 4 days a week, and they teach different hands-on lessons. It's outstanding. Actually, it drives kids to come to school. We had a student the other day say that it's one thing that they love to do, and when they come in, it's a new student that came in and are just thrilled with it. They also incorporate SEL lessons. This year, we have another AmeriCorps rep that comes in on Monday and Tuesdays and are able to teach some of those SEL lessons to students, which have gotten rave reviews. That is grant funded as well as Project Doe. I've paid for half of NEST, though, from my title grant, Title I. Environmentally, the way we support that, we're really stressing recycling. Emma Rotner, our magnet coordinator, has been integral in this. She does gardening. We have a lot of outdoor spaces. We focus on also upscaling through enrichment art. We're right now doing a huge plastic bag initiative. So if you want to contribute to our plastic bags, we're trying to collect 1,000 pounds of them to put towards our K Take Action project for Project O. As I mentioned, we have outdoor spaces. So we have a pavilion, we have garden beds, we have a greenhouse and rain barrels. Those have all been grant funded and are fantastic. We have a magnet room that has a hydroponic tower that grows lettuce and herbs. We're going to have a plant sale too. So each grade level is going to be growing a different plant or veg to sell at the end of the year. And we try to incorporate different content areas with these huge projects. We also have trails. So we get out on the trail. We have 2 trails and are trying to finish up a 3rd one. With that, we have kids involved doing different signage. And that's an active sign that Emma is working on through another grant that she got. And we're excited for that because it'll educate students onto what kind of animals and plants that they see on those trails. Additionally, we partner with Mystic Aquarium. I have funded that. You're going to see it in the instructional services where I had allotted $12,000. That comes out of the site budget. They focused last year on creating a terrific turtle program for us because our mascot is the turtle. Each grade level has a different turtle assigned to them. It's actually really fun. Last year, we were able to have field trips for 2nd through 5th grade going. This year with busing, we did limit that to 4th and 5th going, and then having Mystic coming in to teach lessons about the turtles in K1, 2, and 3. This year also, though, I was able to help get preschool and pre-K with Mystic Aquarium. So that's excellent for them.
Good.
Yeah, I know. Course specific supplies. So a line item there. Obviously, all of these different items, even though the outdoor spaces were grant funded, it does cost to keep them up, and, you know, sort of increasing that hydroponic piece, the gardening piece, we definitely a lot cost for that. I also am renewing our second step tier 1 curriculum. So it's the SEL program that we all use. I am going to be renewing that. So that does come out also of that funding line item. And then the other things I have too are additional instructional supplies. We have a gorgeous building, but we have gorgeous artwork to hang up, and sometimes it will take the paint off. So I'm hoping to purchase really sort of floor to ceiling bulletin boards. So I want to get those, and that's sort of out of the additional instructional supplies. So that's my school. And I echo all of what the principals say as far as it really does take the staff, our SEL tutors, I couldn't live without them, and our social worker, school psychologist, pretty much everyone involved. It takes us all.
Well, thank you very much,
Sure.
Jamie. And I see Andrea has a question.
I do, and it'll take just a few minutes. It's another question that I wasn't sure I should ask, but here it goes.
Okay.
Susan, you mentioned the new reading program. And I'm wondering, first of all, if you would say its name again, and secondly, is that going to go through curriculum?
So we've always had a phonics program, but what we've been utilizing is University of Florida's model. So I feel like the response has been so much better than what we've used in the past, but we've always had phonics, and now we're really focusing it more, and we're doing more coaching around it. And the other program is a program called Haggerty, which we had in preschool and even in K, but they also, it really goes up to grades 1 and 2 as well. So we've enhanced it to use it with older kids too, who may need that.
Can you spell that for me?
Haggerty.
H-A-G?
I'll send you the name so you'll have them.
Okay.
I'll send
Okay.
you the name.
And I think, well, I'd like to see that come to curriculum just so we can look at it.
Absolutely. I think that
Yeah,
was to start there.
I think we're going to talk a lot about literacy in curriculum. So yeah, stay tuned for that.
Okay. All right. I'll give you a call tomorrow. Actually, we have a meeting tomorrow, don't we? That's not. I'll give you a call.
Okay, any other questions for Jamie at Thames River? Beverly.
I'm not going to let Jamie you off the hook. I'm going to ask Jamie the same questions I asked the other principals. Well, one specifically, and it has to do with the achievement gap, Jamie. So do you have everything in your budget that you need to help close the achievement gap? And what specifically in this budget is going to help you close the achievement gap? I'm not letting you off the hook.
Yes, I know, huh? So Beverly, I was actually, once you've been asking all the other principals, I was thinking to myself, I'm thinking it's not just one thing, but I have to say it is echoing again, the other principals, staffing and supporting that tier 1 instruction, getting the people in literacy interventionists or literacy specialists, everybody into that tier 1 to support our students. But it also is having those partners and really getting students excited to come to school. So once they're there, we can help them, right? So that piece of it's big for us, and really being able to support whatever they need, whether, you know, it is literacy, math, social, emotional, it's if they're there, then we can help them. But I'm just trying to think of the other things that the principal said that would be different for me. We are trying to connect the curriculum though throughout. So we're tying in our math, our literacy, our science, our social studies into, you know, across the day. So if they're teaching one topic, I'm thinking of 4th grade right now, they were doing a science topic, but they're interweaving it through math, they're interweaving it through writing, that kind of thing. 5th grade's doing it. Many of our grade levels are starting to try and do that. So that does also help to make those connections for students. So that's something that we're trying to do.
Now, Jamie, do you have money in your budget for parent engagement or activities to get make parents aware of what's on in school and the curriculum and whatever else that parents need to know?
It's not earmarked towards that. It's actually interesting you said that, Beverly. We're planning a math and literacy night. And so it would be something that it depends if we're putting it through title funds, but I usually put it through the site budget, depending on what the activity is. So it's not so much allotted parent funding, but we do. So we're going to be having a math and literacy night coming up that it's going to be very exciting. We're going to be trying to do it with like glow in the dark, and it'll be fun. But that kind of material I'll end up purchasing through my site budget. So like glow in the dark tape or glow in the dark paper, that kind of thing will have to be coming out of the site budget. March 5th, if you're interested in stopping by.
You know, I'll have to collect all these dates. I don't want to miss the one of them.
Planning stages.
Yeah.
All right, so next I'm going to recognize Ian and then Adrian.
All right, thank you. And thank you for the comprehensive report, Jamie. Appreciate that. And you answered my question already about the math and literacy night being March 5th.
Yeah.
So as I asked everyone else, infrastructure, how's the new school working out? Any sort of issues or anticipated improvement projects needed?
No, not at this time. As I said, like the bulletin board. I mean, that's not an infrastructure. It's just something we have to put up on the wall so we can keep it as beautiful as it is. I wish I had more flat space, but I can't beat the land. So no, right now, nothing. Knock wood.
And I definitely I want to commend you on the experiential education components that I heard mentioned, the trails and the greenhouses and the hydroponics, and the idea of integrated curriculum across the subjects. I think that's really intriguing approach, and yeah, I'd like to come observe at some point. But
We'll definitely take you for a walk.
yeah, I like to do that at all the facilities. But
I know.
Yeah, scheduling is the challenge.
Yeah.
But thank you for your time.
She didn't mention this, but she's also connected with the Marine Science High School. And, you know, a lot of our students, they're a new Blue Ribbon, and Thames River was one of our second Blue Ribbons, but they really host many Groton students. It's a smaller high school. It's a wonderfully run high school. And I know you've made connections so that we can get some mentoring with high school kids who are studying marine science with our younger kids.
Yeah, whenever we can have high school students coming in, it's fantastic. And they started that partnership where they're volunteering, and actually it ended up being in some of our math classes. But so it depended on the student from the Marine High School, whether they wanted to go into enrichment. So we had some going into our technology. We do enrichment on Wednesdays, and some wanted to do that. Some wanted to do gardening with Emma. Some wanted to go into math. So we kind of placed where they were going.
All right. Thank you very
So
much.
that's,
Adrian,
the
you had
Marine
a
Science
question?
High School is one of the top high schools in the state of Connecticut.
Yeah. It's actually listed in the nation as a top performer.
Yeah.
So I'll recognize Adrian.
All right. So my question I wanted to just ask before we got off of the elementary schools, but it's probably more a question of for Susan. Obviously, literacy is a big thing, to go on kind of what Andrea was asking about. But since the state has denied our reading waiver, and I know they were most critical on the fact that we're using Teachers College and Fountas and Pinnell, as our core reading curriculum programs. Like I know they had approved those other programs, Hegarty and UFly, when they were being used with different core programs, but they didn't approve it apparently with our program. Do we have money in the budget, assuming that we're going to need to replace those, or there's a high likelihood that we're going to need to replace those programs with something that that meets the state, what the state's requiring in the Right to Read grant? Do we have money in the budget to replace those programs?
I would say that was the biggest question that all the superintendents around the table that were with me on Friday asked our Commissioner of Ed, that this is another unfunded mandate, and some of those price tags are about $600,000 to $1 million. So that's not anything that you can do in 1 year, but we do have a couple years. And we are investigating, and we can share, starting with curriculum committee and then with the COW. That's a discussion that is really worthy of some time to really talk to you all about, and what are some of our next steps. I had mentioned the geodes, which are the decodable text, and that's another major ingredient, especially in building fluency. So that would be 3 of the 5 major components of literacy that we need to tackle. And we're already starting to do some transitioning in our Readers Writers Workshop with some of the key teaching points and making sure those shifts are happening already. So I'd be happy to bring some staff and the principals and talk to you some more about that. But there are things in the work, but we do not have $500,000 or $1 million for a new program. So we do
Well,
have components, and so maybe we can piece it together with the components that we have so far.
yeah, I mean, I wonder if that's the best course of action, just because, I mean, we do have a pretty definitive letter from the state saying that I mean, to quote, it says our collection of programs do not show evidence of meeting the expectations of the Connecticut state statute. So us as a Board of Ed, I mean, should we plan on that? And obviously, we don't want to just keep trying reading programs and having them not work out or go back. I mean, go back and forth on this. I mean, I'm wondering if we should have money in the budget for a new reading program. If for some reason we can salvage some parts of this, then great. But according to the state, we don't meet that standard. So I'm just wondering if that's the best course of action, to not plan for the financial
Well, I
aspects of
think
that.
one of the things you'll find out in legislation, we're pushing for legislators to look at that as a statewide issue, that there are, there's 169 districts, 100 wrote waivers, only about a quarter of those were accepted. So there are many of us sitting in the same seat, and we're asking the state to be able to provide funding. So that's, I think, a further conversation, but you're right to be thinking about that. And it's something that I am going to be bringing to the Curriculum Council and to the COW to think through it with you.
Yeah, I agree. It's just that our budget is now, and those things I think are probably down the road, at least a month or two out. So, I mean, I'm guessing that we've spent a lot of money on the programs that we have now and that we would have to replace them. So it's not necessarily a one-time fee, or at least we'd be buying something else soon. So I guess I just want to make sure the board members realize that this is
Right.
it's $600,000 is a lot of money.
It is.
And to have to come up with if we didn't properly allocate for this in the budget process.
So we really
Right.
have 2 full years. So I would say, really looking at a pilot, because you wouldn't just go purchase something. And so you would have to pilot something first before you ever pilot a few things. So we're actually taking some visits, but this isn't really the conversation to have at this point during budget, but the idea of thinking ahead about the monies, whether it's this year or in next year's budget, or if the state legislation will help support schools. There's been a real demand from CAPS and CABE that these unfunded mandates are not fair on our school districts, and that we really need to have more support from the state in providing resources for this.
Yeah,
And I
we
know
did
this is going to
receive
be a
some
much,
grant funding. Yeah, I understand. I mean, I'll leave it at that. I mean, I know we received some grant funding to help pay for this,
Yeah, it's
and
95,000, and it's going to cover maybe a few of these decodable texts. It's $50,000 per class set of decodable text per grade level, or 50,000 per grade level. So even to get the 150,000, that wipes out most of the right to read grant. So
I know
it's
I
really,
know
it's
I know we're
expensive.
going to have a much larger conversation, and this could be an entire COW, but I will mention that 2 weeks ago, I went to the CABE legislative breakfast, and one of the superintendents shared how they used the state-approved program, decided to get rid of it because they didn't like it. Their scores actually went up, and the state still dinged them, even though their scores went up, and they said, we're not interested in the scores. We just want you to use the program we've mandated. However, they have not issued a model curriculum. They just
No.
sort of put out the programs. no model curriculum, no guidance, just do this. But, we just don't want to jump on and spend $1 million on the wrong program. I would like to see
Right.
us go slow and
You-
identify what really is a good program. It sounds like the state threw that, no disrespect, but threw that list together pretty quickly. And we've got actual districts that say that by eliminating the state program, their scores went up. This is the first time I've ever heard the state say they're not interested in scores. I was shocked by that statement. So,
And the
Anyway.
Yeah.
commissioner reiterated that. I think I wrote about it in board notes pretty extensively, but it is something that we have until, July 2025. So if we're going to do it, we're going to do it the right way. And I'm going to be very careful with the funds we use. And me, I'll go after finding other funds, and really pushing this point that this, first of all, the job of a State Department is to write model curriculum. They've done actually a pretty good job in mathematics. And I asked the commissioner when I was sitting with her, when we were all sitting there, I said, why hasn't it been done in K-3 literacy? That should have been done a couple years ago. You should have brought everybody around the table and done it the right way. That's how you design curriculum. I've done this 43 years, I know. And she said, well, it's just begun. But they still want you to kind of put the cart before the horse and buy a program. Resources, usually you design curriculum and the board has to approve the curriculum, as Andrea can tell you how our process works. So I said we're kind of overlooking our board's process here by setting these demands and not doing this the right way so that, we really vet the resources that will work best for Groton and that will tie in with the curriculum that we have. So our curriculum does support the Common Core standards, but we want to put the foundation of reading in there, centralized K-3 so that really stands out and we can address that. So that's just my mini lesson, but I think you're right, Adrian, we've got to pay attention to that. And we've got to, have some deep thoughts and some conversations around that with the board. So I'm looking forward to that.
And thank you for championing this, Adrian.
Yeah.
We don't want to ignore it, but we also don't want to spend $1 million on a program and then go back to the town next year and say, well, we picked the wrong program, we need another $1 million. So, Ian.
Thank you. I just wanted to echo Adrian's concern on that, and I was curious to know, like, how soon could we have a curriculum committee meeting? And not that I'm part of that one, but I would like to observe, and then also, during the cow that's associated with that, voice, whatever input I could offer based on what's been presented. I do have some experience writing curriculum. I worked on a curriculum committee with the state, with my district. And so, I do think,
how
time is
important
of
that
the
is,
essence.
right, Ian? You know how
Yeah.
important that is. Really
Right. So,
essential.
yeah, I'm thinking time is of the essence. And, I expressed some concern a while back about all the committee meetings that had been canceled in January. And I'm wondering, like, how soon and what's the process? How could we, and I heard Andrea mention, make a referral earlier. So it seems like we do have some business to get through the curriculum committee and into the committee of the whole. And, like, how soon could that happen?
Well, Andrea is the chair of the committee and she will call the meeting. And I think she's very interested as well. Maybe that's why her hand is up.
I'll let you know tomorrow, Ian. I'll have a day and time for you tomorrow. And the other thing I heard Ian say that, no, Ian, I'm sorry, Adrian say, or maybe it was Susan, that's like, just tossed out the term, I think it was Susan, curriculum council. That's different from the curriculum committee, just so you know that. Okay, but I'll get to you tomorrow because I'm going to talk with Phil tomorrow about setting that meeting up. And I'm hoping, I'll tell you tomorrow.
Thank you, Andrea. And thank you, Jamie. A lot of exciting things happening at all of our schools. It's very exciting to hear from everyone on the front lines about what all of you are doing to support our students. Thank you very much. And if I'm not mistaken, we're next on to Denise.
I want to make sure my principals get a good night's sleep. They've got an early morning, so I want to be able to say thank you very much. And I understand that you might need to go home and kind of get yourself ready for tomorrow. So I appreciate you being here, telling your
Yeah,
story.
thank you all.
Yes,
Thank
we're
you.
here.
Thank you.
And I'm just going to say ahead of time, Denise, I know you have like a full agenda, and maybe part of it we can talk about globally, and then we might not, some of yours really is K through 12, and the secondary principals come at the end of January. So know that maybe we'll do a piece of it that deals with elementary, and then we'll save the other stuff for when we go with the high school and middle school. How about that? So we can kind of split up your
Sure. Yeah,
list.
that sounds great.
And Denise, is there anything to show, or can you do that from your computer? I'm not sure what, there you go.
Yeah.
Answered
Can
my
you see
question.
it? Can everyone see
Yeah.
it? All right. So good evening, everyone. We created the special ed overview a little bit late in this new budget presentation process because we thought that it would encapsulate some of the other areas that we normally budget separately for. So there is a lot of information here, and I will just kind of touch upon skim the surface, and then we can revisit on the next night when we meet with middle school and high school. But the elementary staff in our department works very hard to identify students in the community who may have a disability. We have a team called the Early Childhood Assessment Team that Nadine Macklin, one of our supervisors, works very closely with. And that's comprised of a speech and language pathologist and a special education teacher. And they provide, you can see in our overview, that's how we started our overview. They provide individual evaluations for children in the community who are experiencing delays. And they really walk parents through the process. And parents are a big part of that assessment process as well in terms of giving a developmental history. If students are found to be eligible through the assessment process, then they collaborate with families in terms of developing an IEP, which stands for an individualized education plan. And this happens throughout our grade levels, K to 12, as well as with our preschool population. So that is why we have special ed teachers at every grade level in every building, so that they can not only meet the needs of students who are identified as requiring special ed services, but also meet the needs of students who are referred for special ed services. Our meetings are called planning and placement team meetings. They involve parental input as well as input from that multidisciplinary team. And they determine the level of support that students require in order to meet their goals and objectives. And we always start in the general ed setting. That's called least restrictive environment. So we try as much as possible to deliver services in that general ed setting where students have access to that highly engaging curriculum, all those robust materials, and their typical peers. However, we do, as noted earlier, have some specialized programs throughout the district that address the needs of children who have multiple disabilities. Some of them predominantly have autism. Others have more of a cognitive disability, whereas others have more delays in the areas of behavioral and emotional regulation. And we do have staff that support these students along the way in terms of social workers, speech and language pathologists, occupational therapists, physical therapists, and paraprofessionals. And we work very closely with our colleagues at the elementary level to support them in this process, to provide specialized curriculum. We do have a grant. It's the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. A large portion of the grant goes to supporting our paraprofessionals in terms of paying their salaries and supplementing what the board has or what the board provides. But another portion of the grant is dedicated to providing more adaptive equipment and specialized curriculum that some of our students need, that's on more of an individualized level. And then I'm very fortunate to have the support of 3 very talented special education supervisors. Miss Nadine Macklin, who you've heard a lot about tonight, works very closely with our preschool population and our elementary population. Miss Katie Van Ness is an expert at managing behavior and developing interventions and strategies to address social emotional learning needs. And then Miss Amy Rutolo is very, very experienced and highly creative in working with adolescents who also have behavioral, social emotional challenges, as well as learning delays. And we also have Mr. Mark Peluso, who is a student services facilitator. He works supporting the middle school and high school administrators, chairing planning and placement team meetings and 504 meetings part-time. And then he also teaches students in special education at the high school level. So I will stop there and take any questions or address any of the other information in our overview that anyone would like more information on. But I don't want to take up too much time at this point.
I'll recognize Adrian, followed by
Yeah,
Bill.
so thank you. Denise, so kind of going back to Mike asking about dyslexia, and just for the board's information or whatever, I'm reading from the Yale Center for Dyslexia and Creativity. It says dyslexia affects 20% of the population and represents 80 to 90% of all those with learning disabilities. It's the most common of neurocognitive disorders. So my question really comes to the budget and whether we're really funding enough to properly teach these kids who, without basically some intensive phonics instruction, right? But much more than much more than UFly or something like that is going to give us. These kids can be very successful, and it's tricky because these kids are typically above average when it comes to spatial and remembering visual things. So it can become tough watching them read, but I know that the state requires us to kind of keep a watch list of kids. But with more one teacher in the middle school teaching these kids, and then 0.6 at the elementary school, at the elementary level. Number one, that seems a little backward to me because obviously we want to be catching dyslexic kids and get them into proper intervention, at kindergarten 1, 2. And if you do it from my own experience, as you know, if we catch the kids later on, it's much harder to get them through these programs. And it affects their learning the rest of the way through school. And I guess I know I'd asked how many teachers we have that are Wilson certified, but I'd like a little bit more detail on how many specifically, not including teachers that have done a 3-day introduction, teachers that have received Wilson 1 or Wilson 2, the full gamut of training, which is like a significant amount of training. And I know our district was actively pushing teachers to get that full training, or at least special ed or reading teachers to get that full training a few years ago. So I'm wondering how many kids are in these programs right now in the specific Wilson 12-step program or another similar in-depth program.
Well, all of our students receive specialized instruction, and that specialized instruction is chosen based on their needs. So students may be receiving Wilson instruction, they may be receiving instruction through the SPIRE program, which is an Orton Gillingham-based program. They may be receiving instruction in specific phonics. It really depends on their needs. But I was able to do a little bit of research while the principals were reporting We have 26 teachers in our department, which is a pretty significant number of teachers who've had some level of Wilson training, from the 3-day intro training all the way up to level 1 certification. And as I stated earlier, we have increased our number of teachers who just instruct students in Wilson, but they are not the only teachers. So the 1.6 FTEs that you see on our summary are just 1.6 of the 26 teachers who teach students in Wilson. Special ed teachers at the elementary, middle, and high school level see students during the resource block, and they use Wilson or they use Spire. So we have quite a large percentage of teachers trained in structured literacy, with Wilson
As well
not
as-
being the only structured literacy program that the state and the National Dyslexia Association endorses.
As well as literacy specialist. And I know back prior to COVID, Adrian, Denise and I had really planned on having Orton Gillingham do a summer institute for our teachers, and we had quite a few signed up, and then we hit COVID. So there has been interest in Orton Gillingham. I think there is a teacher who's put that as their goal, and they're working towards that. Level 2 Wilson training is for our train the trainer. Would I love to have someone Wilson 2 that could train trainers right here in house? But it is a huge commitment, not only financially, but on the teacher's time. It's like having a master's degree, additional master's degree. And there could be someone in our future who really wants to do that. I know the ones that we have in the level 1 training are super excited about it. And, you know, I'm hearing from them kind of on a regular basis and how it's going. So we do want to cast the net and really give this opportunity. So you're singing our song, because we do want this for our teachers, for our students.
I guess I want to kind of go back and not have just general terms that we have 27 teachers, but it might be that 21 had the 3-day training, which I don't necessarily I wouldn't necessarily agree is enough training to implement that program. Both, like, 2 of my children having gone through the full 12-step program, I'm obviously pretty familiar with it. So my question is this is 20% of our kids, and probably a large portion of the 47% of our kids that are reading below grade level. So I don't know how many kids need, like, the full Wilson program or Aspire or whatever, like the in-depth program, but I would like to know how many kids are in that program now. I mean, I have some paper that I know I have this sheet, but it says in 2022, we had 27 children diagnosed as with dyslexia, 2 of those children being my own, in Groton, 27 out of 4,000 kids. And then I read about dyslexia, and I'm wondering if it's a much bigger problem than we're willing to accept. And if lots of kids that are very smart end up not being as successful in our school because we're not properly funding it. So can you tell me how many kids that we have either in that Wilson 12-step program or another program that is science evidence-based? Or is that something that you can get to me or to the board as a whole to understand this issue?
We have 764 students receiving special ed services. I could not tell you this evening what percentage of students are being instructed in what specific program. That's the teacher's discretion, as well as the planning and placement team's discretion to make those decisions.
But we could find out the number of students within that who really have a specific reading disability. And what I've learned are there's several different types of reading disabilities, but that would have to be get you the data. And it right now we've kind of focusing on the budget. So, but that's definitely a conversation for the future.
This is a budget thing. I mean, we have 1.6 positions with dyslexia, and 20% of our kids have dyslexia, and probably a lot of them a lot of them are not as severe where maybe they can be helped out. But I'm just wondering if we are, as a board, funding dyslexia well enough to properly teach our kids.
So I
that
think that
suffer.
we can gather that data so you can have a more fine-tuned kind of knowledge base on how many that would be. Denise
right.
has said she can, get that to you.
Right. I'll put an email together,
Thank you.
with this, and maybe you can just respond to the board with it.
Sure.
Okay, thank you. And Beverly? And then Ian.
Thank you, Jay. Denise, I see for school social workers, 6.5 are funded by grants. How long are those grants good? What's the longevity of those grants?
Well, some of the grants are Title I, and those are renewed each year. Other grants are mental health grants that the state has been providing to us since the COVID pandemic. And those are not due to expire for, at least 1 to 2 more years.
I think 5 of those are in Beverly. 5 of
And
those
one is in
social workers
Richmond.
are in titles. 4 are
Yeah.
in the
Okay.
Title I schools, and then the fifth one is in Title IV.
Yeah, there's Title I, Title IV, and then special ed
What's Title IV, Denise?
in Richmond, enhancement.
Oh, okay, all right. So Title I, Title IV, and special ed.
Yeah,
Welcome to my little world.
The state provided some mental health grants as a result of COVID. And we've got a couple that are still funded for the next at least 1 to 2 years.
And I have a question about the board certified behavior analyst. One's under staff and the other one's under contracted staff. Why, what's the difference?
Sure. So we used to contract all of our board certified behavior analysts from Learn. And these are folks that really address behavior specifically in our autism program. And then we did receive a grant during COVID. It was a special ed ARP ESSER, and we were able to hire our own board certified behavior analyst that presented at the board in the fall. So we were fortunate that we were able to bring that position into the board's budget next year so that we don't have to contract. It is more cost effective to hire directly. But the grant only allowed us to bring 1 FTE into the budget, not all of them. So we still contract for 1.6 BCBAs with Learn.
And are all your paraprofessionals funded by the board or some funded by grants?
IDEA.
IDEA, okay.
Yeah, there's about 45. Yeah, we supplement. So we can't supplant the board's budget. We supplement with about 45 to 50 paras in IDEA.
Thank you, Denise.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, thank you. And next, I'll recognize Ian.
Thank you. Just looking at function code 1230. Specifically line 125 and then line 588. Just curious to know, on line 125, it's labeled tutors and it's 0 for tutors in special ed K through 12. And then down at 588, there's travel for field trips. That's also another 0 line item. And I'm just curious to know, are those being covered under a different line item and then bridged across, or do we not allow for any tutors or for the special ed K through 12?
Sure. So our field trips are all budgeted at the site budgets for each of the buildings. So we don't specifically have funds in a field trip account for special education. So our students attend field trips, but they go with their classroom at each building. And then in terms of the tutor account for next year, we were able, as the board is aware, we were able to negotiate our contract with the paraprofessional union. And we were able to add a new position to the budget, which is registered behavior therapists. And that's a position that is similar to the tutors. However, those individuals have more specific training in terms of working with students who have special learning needs in terms of data collection and certain instructional methodologies. So we've included the registered behavior therapists in the budget next year, along with the paraprofessionals.
So the registered behavior therapists, where do they appear in the budget? And what function?
We'd have to ask Dave that question. I'm not quite sure about that. We might have to get back to you on that, Ian.
Okay. And also, I'll throw this in email too, just to follow up on Adrian's line of questioning. I'm curious to know about, as far as assessing for dyslexia, what sort of processes do we use for that?
Sure, that's done through the PPT process, and the team would select tailored assessments that would assess the student in terms of where their reading delays are most pronounced, whether it's fluency, comprehension, whether it's decoding, whether it's phonemic awareness. They would design an individualized evaluation, and they would select measures, individualized assessments that assess the student in the areas where the student is having difficulty.
And
So
you do
some
have that
students would-
budgeted. I think you have many resources to choose from, but you also have an area in the budget that would have different testing protocols, right?
We do. And there are different types of dyslexia. Some students have specific word reading dyslexia. Some students have oral language or reading comprehension, aspect of dyslexia. And then there's a mixed word reading disability that's comprised of decoding and oral language or reading comprehension. So depending on what the presenting concern is, the team would design an evaluation to address those areas. And we have a large array of assessments to choose from, standardized as well as curriculum-based measures.
Thank you. And what would trigger that sort of PPT? Is there a threshold of assessment, as far as like an achievement gap of some kind that maybe grew to a certain point for a certain student?
Well, typically students receive intervention through the literacy and math interventionists that the principals spoke about earlier. And we collect data to determine whether or not that intervention is allowing the student to progress. And if it's not, we generally go back. You heard the principals talk about tier 1. The interventions start at tier 2. And then if those are not sufficient to help the student make progress, or the student's not making the progress that we'd like to see, we would increase the intervention to tier 3, which means the student would receive the intervention with more frequency. So maybe 4 or 5 days a week, and more intensity. So a longer session. And generally those interventions are provided first. And then if the student is still not making progress, we suspect the student has a disability, we would refer to the planning and placement team to conduct an individualized evaluation.
And over what sort of span of time does that occur?
It varies. It varies depending on the student and the intervention.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, thank you. It sounds like another long topic we could discuss at a COW. So let's keep adding to the referral list. And Beverly.
Denise, can you explain the alternative educational program? Is that a special ed class, or is that something different?
Yes, we have a program at central office that is really could be categorized as an alternative ed program. It's a shortened day. It's 4 hours a day in the morning with 2 to 3 tutors, who are all retired teachers. One's a retired counselor. And we instruct the students on their courses that they're enrolled in. It's generally students in 8th grade. We've had a couple 7th graders, grades 7 through 12. And it allows the students to kind of reset in terms of getting back on track academically, behaviorally, socially. We have a counselor that comes and provides counseling. We have an art teacher that comes and provides art. And, we really try to give the student supports and help them refocus and go back to the high school or middle school, and not engage in behaviors that, are at risk or that violate the code of conduct, so that they can be successful back in their home school.
It's
Some of the
also
students are
setting,
expelled.
Beverly. Can I just add, Denise, it's also the setting where students who are expelled by law have got to be given a free and appropriate education for 4 hours and get those resources. So they really come up to central office. I call it kind of the life preserver, because we really want to get them back to school, but we want them to kind of own up to what the mistake was and to really learn from it. So, along with other kids who really, the high school can be very big. And, we do have an MBA program as well at the high school, which is an alternative setting kind of high school, but they integrate into the high school. So we have different layers of that, but the one that I think you're referring to that's in the budget is the one that's at the central office. And Denise and I keep an eagle eye and get to know those kids really well and take care of them so that they can get back on track.
What is the MBA? That's the MBA program. It's a program up at the high school, right?
Right.
Yeah, that's
right.
the
Okay.
beginning
Real beginning.
alternative program. Yep.
Okay, that's what I thought. Okay. Denise, has your staff increased over the years? Like,
Yes.
did you always have 3 supervisors?
We added a third, I'm going to say about 10 years ago. And teachers and paras, have increased. We've seen, great needs post-COVID. Everyone's heard of the learning loss related to COVID, as well as the social emotional needs that students have. So we have increased incrementally throughout the years.
We do keep a close eye on caseloads. It's really important that our special educators in the building have kind of a defined caseload, and it's usually somewhere between 15 to 20. And so really through the IEP process and the services that students receive, that really forces us to pay attention to those FTEs in special ed, and it really helps define the need for us.
And one last question. How do you use the mental health consultant?
Sure. So Dr. Maury Wrightington supports our behavioral, our social, emotional, and behavioral classrooms all the way through kindergarten through grade 12. So she works really closely with Mrs. Van Ness to help them, design incentives, feedback to students in terms of, some of them have a leveled system, helping them respond appropriately to maladaptive behavior. So we're not reinforcing maladaptive behavior, but we're changing behavior. She also helps us with our paraprofessional PD. So as of, I think this year, we have to provide up to 18 hours per year of professional development for our paras. And Dr. Wrightington has some really robust, high quality online PD modules that we use to supplement the PD with our paras. This year is the first year that she has helped us expand those modules to all of our certified teaching staff. So she has developed online PD modules that the principals show once a month at their faculty meeting. They're 15, 20-minute modules with a nice PowerPoint that they can take with them. And they're all effective tier 1 strategies to engage children in grades K through 12 in learning.
I would say too that Dr. Wrightington has worked with us at the school-based level, meeting with staff and really helping to develop and understand behavior and why behavior happens, and to really get to the heart of the matter with staff. So I think she's been an instrumental staff developer as well, as working with the significantly challenged kids who have behavior, issues. So she's really been a great resource, and we've really afforded her mostly through Title II.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Beverly. And next I'll recognize Adrian.
All right, this is a quick question. I'm just wondering, it kind of goes back to dyslexia, but I'm wondering if we have any students right now that are placed out of district with a diagnosis of dyslexia as their primary disability. And if none now, have we had any in the last couple of years that we've outplaced and paid for or partially for other schools to service children with the dyslexia?
Well, I would not want to comment on that in public. I think it may violate confidentiality of some students.
But we certainly have had a consultant that we had trained while she was here, and she has really helped support our students as well. So we do have, outside of, our own staff, we do have a consultant who has worked with us closely, and has helped to meet the needs of a lot of our kids.
All right. So we may or may not have or be paying for students to attend other schools with dyslexia. I guess that's
So
what you're
Adrian-
saying. We just can't
Adrian,
comment on that. or-
sometimes when the size of the students is a small size, disclosing that information can violate their confidentiality because people may know who
All
they
right, I
are.
understand.
So it would
Yep.
not be appropriate for me to share that at a public meeting.
I understand. Yep. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you very much. I don't know if the rest of you had your phones blow up, but it looks like the superintendent has been
I've been
Rap-
multitasking. We have a 2-hour delay.
rapidly
Everybody else was doing it. I figured I had to.
rapidly serial
Pressure.
tasking. All right, but I do believe
I'd
Andrea
rather
has
let
something.
families know before.
I do believe that Andrea has something she wanted to add.
I do. Motion to adjourn.
Oh, wow.
Do I have a second?
Can I ask a quick
I
question?
thought you were really asking that.
Jay, are we not going through the white pages, or that's it for elementary ed?
That's it for tonight for elementary ed, and we can explain more about those other pages that go in the back of the book at the next time.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
Do I have a second on the motion to adjourn?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Hi.
All right. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you all. Good attention spans. That was a lot. I
Yes.
appreciate it.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.